Hey everybody, it's Dave here, and we're about ready to get started with your Minnesota Vikings live draft coverage on Climbing the Pocket. We have a whole slew of your favorite personalities scheduled for this weekend. We're starting off with Tyler Forness, Jonas Stark over in Germany, and the wonderful Tanishka Maskar. And hopefully, Kwesi brings it tonight. Are you ready to be on the clock? 'Cause we are. Welcome to live NFL draft coverage, where a new era is about to begin, right here at Climbing the Pocket. Hey everybody, as I bring the other two in, are you ready for tonight? Have you got your favorite beverage? Are you excited to see how Kwesi Adofo-Mensah does in his first ever draft running the show? And as you can see on the screen, we have from the viewer's left, Jonas Stark all the way across the pond from Germany, where it's what, 2 o'clock in the morning there, Jonas?
Yeah, yes, it is. At least it's 1 hour earlier than two days ago, but yeah, I mean, I got used to it over the last few years. Whether it's staying up for very shitty games on prime time, or yeah, the drafts over the last few years, but yeah, you get used to it. So
Hey, that's what happens when you're a diehard Vikings fan. Then we have smack dab in the middle, prettiest spot on the screen, Tanishka Maskar. How are you, Tanishka?
I'm great. I am so excited.
Good. And over on the viewer's right, just above me, we have the man, the myth, the legend, the one that works for NBC Sports Edge, the Vikings Wire, Climbing the Pocket, guests on Score North, Mr. Tyler Forness. How are you doing, Tyler?
I am so excited. It's a sense of relief. I'm running on almost no sleep and have been for basically a month. This is Christmas. This is better than Christmas. This is like every major holiday from every major religion wrapped up into one and tied with a bow. This is where you get hope. This is where you see the future of your franchise. This is the dawn of a new era, and we are about to see how that transcends with Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell. I'm absolutely ecstatic on what could happen here tonight. Let me tell you, we have been talking ad nauseum about the potential for this first round pick. And I am the only person in the media with a full mock draft that has the Vikings taking wide receiver Chris Olave. And let me tell you,
Let's go.
if he takes Chris Olave, it's going to be a legendary moment on the show. If he takes Derek Stingley Jr., I've got an entire cooler filled with these ready to rock and roll. We're going to have an absolute blast tonight. There really is no bad pick outside of Kenny Pickett that this team can make it 12. I mean, obviously there's some dissension about guys like Jordan Davis due to the positional value
Linderbaum.
because he could potentially be a 2-down player. Linderbaum's an interesting one. He had 33-inch arms. He'd be a top 15 lock. That's the only real flaw in his game. But is
He's
he going to
still
be that
small.
much of an
He's
improvement
small,
over Bradbury?
stature-wise, height-wise, weight-wise. He's still small. And I don't care how long your arms are, if the defensive tackle can get underneath and pick you up, you're going to get beat.
Yeah. And that's why, after thinking about it for a long time, I don't think he's an inherent value over Bradbury. I'd take him in round 2 in a heartbeat. But round 1, I'm good. It's going to be interesting. We didn't have one person mock wide receiver to the Minnesota Vikings until last week. They were all defenders, and then what I aggregated, 2 for Linderbaum and 1 for Malik Willis.
Hey, there was on that consolidated draft, mock draft, there was a few that picked Malik Willis if he fell to 12.
Hey, if he
That
falls to
would
12,
be-
and anybody that heard or watched in the huddle saw me stand on my soapbox and beg and plead and give all this information about Malik Willis and say he should be the guy. Dave, I know we talked post show. You agreed. He should be the guy. If you think he's the guy, you don't trade down. Like you can't.
Tanishka, what do you
have to take
think?
him.
I mean, I'm not as high on him as I was with some of the quarterbacks last year, but he's probably my favorite one in this class. And if they went that way, I'd honestly be really excited because he would be the future of the franchise, and it would be even more exciting because then you'd know that Kirk Cousins' time is coming. But I feel like there's very few picks tonight that would make me not excited. I mean, Linderbaum's probably one of them, but there's so many directions they could go in, and for a first-time general manager, like fans not knowing where he's going to go, especially, just makes it even more exciting. And that honestly goes for the entire draft too, because no one knows what the first pick is going to be. I mean, we've all heard the Trayvon Walker rumors, but no one actually knows. So that changes so much too.
Yep, you got that right. I would like to acknowledge everybody that's joined us so far tonight. We've got quite a few. Aaron, Sean, Brian, Andrew, Denver, good friend of mine, Chuck, Jonathan, Steve, Chris, Sean, Russ. Hey, you guys absolutely rock. Timothy, DG, Donnie's here. There we go. Thank you to Evil to Hope. Ritter goes first guaranteed. Oh, that would be a huge one if that
He is
would
plus
happen.
1,000 right now to be the first quarterback drafted. So if you think he goes before any of these other guys, throw some money down, call a buddy that lives in a gambling state and place it, because that could be some really nice value. None of the big leagues had a quarterback going early. Like Dane Brugler, Daniel Jeremiah, McShay, Kuiper, Schrager. None of them had a quarterback in the top 10. Like, this is going to be a really weird draft. We may see it like 2013 where quarterbacks push down the board. I'm just fascinated. This is like every other draft, just jacked up on caffeine and steroids. Like, nothing makes any sense. Like, I'm excited.
I had Pickett going top 6 in my mock, but it's so random that you don't actually know.
If you've got the TV on right now, Goodell came out and he is being roundly booed.
Good.
All is right with the world. Goodell's being booed. We are here. It is time.
Oh my gosh.
Jonas, did you close down the bars over there in Germany tonight before hopping on?
Here's Jahan Walker. If it's Walker, then Hutchinson.
Oh, I mean, I came back from practice earlier today, so yeah, it was just getting some food ready and then hopping on here. I mean, maybe you saw the picture that I posted on Twitter. I post a similar picture every year, depending on where I am for maybe live coverage or whatever. But I always prepare that room for me, and it's just part of this, and I'm so excited to do it every year. And yeah, I mean, we talked about this before. I mean, we all want to see those top quarterbacks enter the league, but those drafts without absolute top quarterbacks have just so much appeal because they are so much more unpredictable. I mean, when you have those top 2-3 quarterbacks.
And the wonderful internet connection from across the pond's freezing up. What he was about to say is when you have those top quarterbacks, right, that it's a no-brainer. Next year, we're going to have some of those. It makes the draft more predictable because the teams at the top are usually going to be targeting them, right? So we don't have that this year. And where the strength seems to be in the edge class. And so we may have edge go 1, 2, 3, and possibly 4. We don't know. That's what's fun about it. Tanishka, who would you like to see the Vikings draft?
I mean, not really knowing what the board looks like at 12, it would be a dream to get Sauce, but it just doesn't seem like that's a reality. I'd be thrilled with any of the wide receivers, especially the ones that they seem interested in with Jameson Williams and Garrett Wilson, or even Olave. Tyler wants that, I know, but there's so many ways that they can go that would excite me because they just tells you so much about their direction that it'll be interesting to see as we get down to 8, 9-ish, like what the board might look like at their pick.
Mm-hmm. Tyler, what's your thoughts? Who's going to go in the first pick?
First pick? For the last 2.5 weeks, I thought it was Treylon Walker. On Monday the 11th, it was reported that he was in consideration. His odds spiked to plus 350, and then just 3 days later, he was completely taken off the board. Then all of a sudden, you saw him neck and neck with Hutchinson earlier this week. He surpassed him. Going into the draft this morning, he was at minus 450 to be the first overall pick. Trent Baalke loves his alien pass rushers, guys with great length, guys with great athleticism. Think Aldon Smith, Eric Armstead, DeForest Buckner. He loves those kind of guys on his front, and I believe he's going to end up taking that guy at number 1 here. I wish I would have thrown money on it 3 weeks ago because I'd be making a bunch tonight. But and then that leaves a really big question for number 2. Where do the Lions go? I had them going Malik Willis because I thought it made way too much sense from a football perspective and from a team building perspective for the Lions. But now you're hearing that they absolutely love Kayvon Thibodeaux and they love Aiden Hutchinson. And while their edge room doesn't have an alpha, they have 3 really good players. So that would make that edge group a potentially dominant force long term because you have 2 guys that are in their developmental stages that are really good pass rushers. Charles Harris is coming off a career year after being a first-round pick from the Dolphins, I believe, in 2017. But he kind of flamed out in Miami. So now, all of a sudden, you have a strength rushing the passer. You invested 2 day 2 picks on Lee McNeil and on Wuzurike in last year on the interior. So all of a sudden, you have a formidable defense that Dan Campbell can really rely on and be like, hey, go out and quote-unquote bite some kneecaps. So 2 and 3 are really going to be the big turning points of this draft. What they do is going to set the table. Because if Ickey Ekwonu's there at 4, I think he's the pick. If he's gone, it's probably Kayvon Thibodeaux. We have no idea what the Texans are going to do. We're hearing cornerback. We're hearing offensive tackle. But
they could go almost anywhere.
You're going to see how the rest of the first round is really going to start to trail off. Are we going to see that tackle run early? Is Evan Neal going to fall due to the potential medical concerns with his knee and hip that Albert Breer reported a couple days ago? Like, some teams medically flunked him within their building. Are we going to see Charles Cross fall because he's coming from a Mike Leach air raid and doesn't have a lot of run blocking experience? And we know a lot of these front office guys and scouts, they kind of have a little bit of a boomer mentality where they really want to prioritize the running game. And if you don't have a lot of run blocking snaps, are they going to want to take that guy really high? There's so many dominoes that can fall. And it's like watching a kid with like 8 dominoes in front of him, and each one sets off a different chain reaction. Like, which one is the kid going to pick? And that's kind of where we're sitting at 2 and 3. Like, this is incredibly exciting. And we're only less than 7 minutes away from the Jaguars getting this thing kicked off.
Well, they're on the clock. They could pick any time between now and then. You think they've had, 3-4 months to figure it out?
Well, there's been dissension in the building, Dave. We've heard that Trent Baalke wants Walker. Doug Peterson wants Ekwonu. Owner Shad Khan wants Aiden Hutchinson. Who's going to win the power struggle? I've heard that Doug Peterson has the final say here. Trent Baalke is the GM. Most of the time, the GM has final say. We know how things happen with John Gruden and Mike Mayock. But ownership, just like what happened with Kirk Cousins, if ownership steps in and says, no, you're taking this guy, you really don't have a choice. And then all of a sudden, you're taking Aiden Hutchinson. So, Keith, this is McGolden Night wrapped up the only way possible.
Joseph asked, what was it like when the Vikings drafted Moritz Boehringer?
It was a cool moment.
I mean, it was definitely a cool moment. It got a bit annoying later because some German news so did a lot of hype, and a lot of it was just way overblown and simply not true, because if you listen to them, you really had the feeling that he was tearing up camp, and he was like about to be the next big receiver, and it just wasn't the case. And if you were informed about what was going on in camp, and you knew how far off they were, it got it. The moment it was really cool.
Gotcha. They've been showing pictures.
When it happened, so I rooted for him, and I yeah.
Well, we all rooted for him. It failed miserably. They're showing pictures of players in the green room waiting, and who's going to be that first pick? Oh man, Tanishka, where can people find your writings?
Because of how busy school's been recently, I have not been writing a lot, but I will. This is my last week of school, so starting in the summer, I have more time again. So Zone Coverage is where you can primarily find all my writing, and that comes out around twice a week.
Sweet.
Dave, while we're kind of talking and getting ready for the Jags to make their first pick, can you do me a favor? Throw up the graphic I sent you earlier of everybody that I've aggregated to the Vikings, because I think that's a really interesting talking point for how many different players have been linked to the Vikings at 12, which is it becomes an interesting dichotomy for what this draft really is, because there were 19 different players that were mocked to the Minnesota Vikings from the beginning of February all the way through last night, because I got the article posted this morning. I did not include the last second mock drafts from a lot of the big name experts, but 173 different mock drafts that I aggregated over that time. Before last Monday, 101 of 104 of them were defensive players. And this week was the first time we really started to see wide receivers. So it's very interesting. 56 of them were Derek Stingley Jr. And then the second one was Trent McDuffie, and I think he was at 26. We're not talking a big drop. Dave will pull it up. There were 12 analysts that had Kyle Hamilton going to the Vikings, all of them within the last 2.5 weeks. So once Dave gets this pulled up, it'll be really interesting. You can kind of see what I'm talking about. But this draft is incredibly divisive. There's no consensus really across the board. I'm other than Thor Nystrom at NBC Sports Edge, I'm the highest man in the industry on Malik Willis, and that's just kind of what it is. And like, there's not consensus with the edge class. There's not consensus with offensive tackle, wide receiver. There it is right there. So you can see who was picked and where. Sauce Gardner hasn't been mocked to the Vikings in like 4 weeks.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
Well, it's because everybody anticipates he'll be gone by then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there it is. Walker is officially the pick.
Okay.
Yikes. I don't like it for them.
It's a massive risk reward because he was.
Yeah.
Everybody on that Georgia defense was asked to play a specific role, and they all played it incredibly well. But because of that, they weren't exactly asked to do a whole lot else. Now, his athletic profile and what he can be, because he's got 35-inch arms. He's like, we're talking vines that droop to the floor. And if he can hit his ceiling, he's a top 5 pass rusher in the National Football League, top 5 defender. But the problem is, if he never develops that pass rush acumen, you're taking a guy that probably should go back in round 1 or round 2 at number 1 overall. So this is a massive swing for the fences. If it hits, it's a big hit. But he's got a long way to go. And if he's going number 1 overall, that really tells you about the top of this class and how not very strong it is.
Yeah. I am assuming, we'll see what happens in a couple seconds, but I'm assuming that the Lions do end up going Hutchinson, and if that's the case, I think that would be a really good pick if they do that. But that's not someone I'm looking forward to playing twice a year if they end up picking him.
I'd rather they take Hutchinson than Thibodeaux. So
okay.
I would be okay with Hutchinson. He's got short arms. He's not super bendy at the hips as far as like getting around the edge. Most of his stuff is outside counters or just literally running by tackles. Once guys engage with him on the inside, he's kind of done. Can he grow and evolve from that? I don't know. Like, I think there are more questions with him than there are with Thibodeaux. And I had Thibodeaux ranked higher. This is going to be fascinating to see how the Lions do they take the hometown kid.
Oh, there
Jim
we go.
Jablonski said they turned in their pick immediately. Donnie is saying Hutchins is a pick.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm trying not to spoil it for myself, but I just saw that on social media.
I have, yeah. But if we were to have a camera in the Lions war room right now, I would think there are scenes like when Zimmer and Spearman found out that the Eagles didn't take Jefferson. I think that's got to be the mood right now.
Yeah, that's a great pick.
Could be.
All right, so Hutchinson obviously goes to the Lions, and now Houston, the big wild card. Do they go Derek Stingley? He was all week plus 250 to go at number 3 overall, and he was the leader in the clubhouse. He would play really well in the Lovie Smith's Tampa 2 defense, and he'd be able to really maximize a lot of, especially with those ball skills, and he can play a press man with how much he likes to blitz too. I think it's a really good fit. The ceiling is stupendous. I'm very worried he'll never reach 2019 again, and that's why I've been out on Stingley at 12 for quite a while. But this is...
Yeah, but he's only 20.
Right.
Yeah, he's 2 years removed from his best play. Yeah, he didn't come close to that in 2020 or 2021. There was a little bit of injury.
He can grow back into that. I'm not worried about that, personally.
I'm not worried about the injury either per se. I'm worried about him ever reaching that apex again, because he reached that apex, Dave, on the best college football team that's ever existed. So can he reach that when he's not on the greatest team of all time?
When he was what, 18, 17, 18?
And it's still impressive, but the questions remain. And
that's saying
where my hesitation is.
Most guys do not reach their physical maturity when it comes to growing and their athletic skills until, young to mid-20s. There's still room there. I can't believe
there
he's
is room,
done at 18.
There are some guys like Jake Locker peaked at 18. Jake Browning peaked at 18, then he hurt his shoulder. Like, there are so many nuances and elements. Can he ever get there? I don't know, but I'm not saying he can't either. I think there's too many questions for me to want to take him at 12 when I could get somebody that I have a better feel for, and I'm not going to be 3 years removed from his best play. Like, that alone is scary. 3 years removed from his best play. The age is great. The fact that we have all the knowledge of the building is great. It's worrisome to me. I would take him at 20. I'm very worried to take him at 12, and I'm willing to eat my words. I'm not sold on it.
Well, that's where we hope Kwesi and his divining analytics comes in and proves to work out. And
I mean, I'm honestly not that worried about Stingley, because between how he played in his first year and the years after, it wasn't that big. And if you factor in that his injury was actually before the season and the 3 games last year he played through this, I'm not that worried, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to see who's feeding picks so far, because I'm not seeing them.
My Sports Update's been feeding them. Schefter and Rappaport won't, because their networks are airing it.
Right.
But
Right.
Insiders that aren't broadcasting the draft, like, they're going to be breaking these picks. Ben Albright will probably be doing it.
Oh, wow.
I'm trying to think of who else.
Oh, wow. What'd you just see?
I just saw pick 3. Yeah, wow, okay.
And
I'm not gonna spoil. I'm trying not to spoil it for myself. I mean, if you guys want to hear it, I'm down.
Oh, I'm cool with it.
Okay. If you two are, it was Derek Stingley.
Shit.
That's where the markets have been trending, and markets have inside
Wow.
information. Like
Mhm.
this, and especially with what we were hearing today, it makes all the sense in the world. And now, all the offensive tackles are on the board for the Jets. So is Kayvon Thibodeaux. There's been a lot of dissension within Jets media. Is it going to be a Ickey Ekwonu? Is it going to be Kayvon Thibodeaux? No matter what, the Giants are getting a great offensive lineman, and they should be thrilled right now, like jumping up and down in the room. So Stingley going here is probably what would have happened if there were never any injury concerns. So
Yeah.
now you see Stingley go. Where does Sauce Gardner end up? Does he go to the Giants? Does he go to the Jets, where that defense doesn't really prioritize corner? Does he go to Seattle, because he just feels like it could be a Seattle Seahawk? Like, the Texans taking Derek Stingley is the big turning point, and we talked about it before the draft kicked off. Now what happens?
That's a good question.
I mean, it's interesting that they choose Stingley over Sauce Gardner, because I think almost everybody over the last few weeks assumed that Sauce would be the first cornerback off the board. So it's kind of the first surprise, although the markets. Something that would have been interesting to know is if the Texans wouldn't have picked Stingley right now, who would have been interested? How far he could have fallen? But yeah, it's already very exciting, because you already see how unpredictable it's been.
Well, on a marketing standpoint,
Especially I think
on a marketing standpoint, other than
I
the
think-
Saints, the closest team, or one of the closest teams to Louisiana is Houston. So it may be we're keeping them in the home area type marketing ploy.
Brian.
You know, front offices are looking at that. how many players do we have? They're from here. Saying about the Minnesota guys. No Oklahoma players yet. Yes, you got that right.
Hey, I'm willing to eat my words on Ja'Marr Chase. I was wrong. You proved me 100% wrong within 16 games. Like, he answered every single one of my questions. That's good for him. Like, I'm okay eating that because
it is.
I had a lot of concerns and he answered them, and that's okay.
I guess Ryan will have to wait on Oklahoma players a long time. I think the highest Oklahoma player on my board is at 34. Yeah,
Benita?
34 if I don't miss. Yep.
Yep.
And I even have him a good bit higher than the consensus.
Oh. Now we wait. Come on, Jets.
Okay, Jets.
Hey, there we go.
I really
Sam
think this
Ponder. The best of the
I
two
think
Ponders.
this is going to be a Ickey Ekwonu for the Jets. I don't see it being Kayvon Thibodeaux. Joe Douglas is enamored with Ekwonu. He has been for some time, but that defense desperately needs pass rusher. They can get pass rusher at 10, 35, and 38. So, I mean, Kayvon Thibodeaux is number one on my board, and that's where I would go. But I think this is going to end up Ekwonu. Brian mentions that the Jets might be looking to trade. Here's my question for you, Brian. Who's going to trade up? Because I don't think anybody's going to be wanting to trade up to 4 for the requisite price that it's going to cost. Like, is Thibodeaux great? Absolutely. Is anybody within the top 10 or beyond the top 10 going to be willing to jump up? And how far are the Jets going to be willing to move down? Because I guarantee you, from 4, they're not going back to 16 to 19 with the Saints. They probably will for 10, but not for 4.
I think the only way to get down from 4 is to have a team within the top 10, like Atlanta or like Seattle, absolutely fall in love with Willis or any quarterback, and they want to jump in front of.
What if it involves a player trade?
No team that wants up for a quarterback. I don't think they.
Say like for Debo,
top 10 pick. I don't know. Yeah, not
couple
for
of Baker or Garoppolo. Other teams that are trying to slough off guys.
Yeah, but not for 4. Not for a top 5 pick.
Here's what I don't get. If you're the Jets and you need to maximize Zach Wilson now, why would you give 10 for Debo, but you're not going to give him for Tyreek Hill? To me, that doesn't make any sense. Like, I wouldn't give 10 for Debo because you can get a top flight wide receiver in this class with a rookie deal, which we're going to see a trend in the National Football League where these rookie wide receiver contracts are going to become inherently more valuable, just like the quarterback ones have been. So why would you take a guy like Debo, who I think is a really good player? He is not a transcendent talent. He's not on a level of a Randy Moss, a Megatron, where they're just this big-time megastar that they can just dominate. Devontae Adams is at that level. You can argue Tyreek Hill's at that level. Justin Jefferson will be at that level. Debo's not. And so trading 10 for him, I think, would be a big mistake. Maybe you can do 35 and 38, throw in a day 3 pick to go with it. That could probably get it done. But trading 10, I think, I can't see it. I don't understand where that thought process would be, that it's worth it for Debo, but not worth it for Tyreek.
Let's see. Come on, Jets.
Yeah. This is an interesting one.
Okay.
Is it Jermaine Johnson?
No. Kind of, yeah. Tyler, your Olave dream might actually come true if this is how the board's gonna go.
Thibodeaux?
Nope. I
Oh,
can
it's
just
gone.
say it if you.
Go.
It's yeah. It's corner Ahmad Sauce.
Sauce.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Boom.
I mean, he's a good fit for that defense, but I didn't expect to have 2 corners top 5.
It's one of those positions of value. We
Definitely.
heard Kwesi
No
talk about he's going to be drafting positions of value,
question.
and there's 4 of those. So
And now we might actually have to wonder maybe if McDuffie makes it to us. Like Seahawks have a very big cornerback need. The Commanders might select one, so I'm not even sure if McDuffie makes it to 12.
It's possible at this rate.
you see, Jablonski wants you to tell us when you get him. We're under no contract with ESPN or NFL Network.
True.
Who's the pick?
For the Jets?
Jets made it. Sauce Gardner.
Yep.
Sauce. There were some rumors about this, but I did not
I didn't see this
think
coming
that.
at all.
Brian's calling for
they subscribe
offensive line for the Giants, which would be a decent move for them.
Got to be. I mean, they have all offensive linemen on the board, and they still need another tackle opposite of Thomas.
Right.
That's wild.
Mm-hmm.
Sean likes making Tyler guess first.
We'll do that.
Come on, Giants.
The Giants are really going to have their pick of all the tackles. Just nuts.
Chris brings this little factoid to the show. Second time in the history,
The first
4
off-
defenders in the top 4.
Wow, that's crazy.
I mean, and the Giants, they could get away with the first offensive tackle off the board and Kayvon Thibodeaux. I mean, that would be a crazy haul for them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, taking Thibodeaux here makes the most sense if you're going to keep 7, because then if you love Ekwonu and you love Evan Neal, you're getting one of them. And I think the other one is going to end up going to Carolina, and then you have the mystery of Charles Cross and Trevor Penning. The Falcons are probably loving this right now because they're going to have a shot at getting Kyle Hamilton, and then whatever receiver they want, like corner, like that's wild. But Sauce is perfect for that cover 3 Seattle style defense that Robert Saleh likes to run. Absolutely perfect. He's 6'3". He's got 33.5-inch arms. Great ball skills. USU's a little oilier in the hips, but he just utilizes press coverage so well, and he can play that press bail that they love to run with that cover 3, where he just starts sprinting down the field. Absolutely great move. But I'm really surprised that they didn't go edge or tackle.
Gotcha. Sean asked, does a QB go in the top 10?
At this point, no. But the Panthers are in desperation mode to save Rule's job. So I mocked Kenny Pickett to him. I'm sticking with Kenny Pickett. They have that relationship. He committed to play for Matt Rule at Temple. until I'm proven wrong, I think it's going to be Kenny Pickett.
That's who I have as well.
I think the only way to not take a quarterback is to trade for Baker or for Garoppolo, because they can't seriously go into the season with Sand. Your job is gone if you do that. And they don't have another pick until round 4, so they can take like an offensive tackle at 6 and then take a quarterback later, because it's gonna be gone by round 4. So the only options at quarterback are either take one at 6 or trade for Baker or Garoppolo. So they just backed into a corner.
Mm-hmm. And here we go. Giants pick is in.
Is it Thibodeaux?
Yeah. Good guess.
Good.
To completely make sense.
I had them taking Thibodeaux, but I had them taking Thibodeaux at 7 because I had tackles going beforehand.
Right.
So now they get their pick of Evan Neal or Ickey Ekwonu, and this with the Panthers pick at 6. This is a spot where anybody who wants their pick of the tackles can come up, go get him. I wrote a piece for NBC Sports Edge talking about potential trade-ups, and I thought the Saints might be willing to trade up for one of those tackles because their offense is so heavily predicated on 2 great tackles. They had Teron Armstead and Ryan Ramczyk for the last 5 years, and they were able to have that really consistency because of those 2 guys. And will they prioritize that again because they just have a borderline traffic cone at left tackle right now with the rest of their O-line set? 16 and 19 to get it done, to go up to 6. And then Carolina all of a sudden has more than 2 picks before 134. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, right now, of my dream targets for the Vikings, there's only one left, so could have started
Who?
in a better way.
Who is that left of your dream targets?
Hamilton. He's number 1 on my big board, so yeah, definitely Hamilton.
He's making his way down. We got a bunch of teams that want to go offense.
Yeah, he's got to go past the Falcons and the Commanders. I think those are the most dangerous in that regard.
all right, this is a cool moment. There's a young kid who through Make-A-Wish is going to be announcing the 5th overall pick. Like, moments like this are why sports are so cool. Like,
Right.
This kid's just loving it. Like,
I don't have the volume up, but he looks like he's quite excited. Look at the bedazzled tux. Definitely Vegas attire for that one. Launched his own cryptocurrency. Hopes to open a school similar to LeBron James' I Promise School. Sounds like a good kid. Avid chess player. So you know he's not stupid.
chess player. That warms my heart. I love it. I love it.
All right. Should be the Panthers on the clock. They've got a little over 5 minutes left to screw up this pick.
So, let's talk about this from a Vikings perspective, because there were some rumors that they might be willing to trade up. But all three players that were alluded to that they were willing to trade up for went 1, 3, and 4. So, unless there really is no inherent value for the Vikings to move up, because who they're going to end up with to be able to select at 12 is looking pretty good. You're probably going to have one of the offensive linemen there, which could be a potential trade candidate. I predicted that the Chargers might be willing to jump up for Charles Cross, give up pick 79. You have potentially all the wide receivers. You've got the last 3 cornerbacks that are first-round quality, Kaiir Elam, Trent McDuffie, Andrew Booth Jr. Your mileage is going to vary on how you view all those guys because they're different, and they're very talented in their own ways, and they have deficiencies. Are any of them worth 12? I don't think so. You could have Kyle Hamilton there. And then there's going to be the everlasting allure of taking a Tracy quarterback in Malik Willis. Will they be willing to pull the trigger if he's there? These next few picks are going to be fascinating. Jim, I hope they take Kenny Pickett. I would love it to be right because I predicted it, and I would love it because Carolina would just go from Teddy Bridgewater and then downgrading each of the next 2 years.
Basically.
The inability to fix the quarterback position is what can really kill a front office and a head coaching staff. The Panthers are in a very interesting position, and they have a lot of ways that they can go with it.
I mean, just ask Mike Zimmer how butchering quarterback decisions can cost you your job.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Brian, Sam Darnold is a bad quarterback. Trading a second, a fourth, and a sixth for a bad quarterback, that's one of the worst trades of all time, in my opinion. You saw nothing that was genuinely positive projection in the first 3 years, and then you trade a bunch of picks for him, including one that's a pretty dang good premium pick, 38 overall. Atrocious process and a panic move by Matt Rule.
Okay. Bum, bum, bum. Come on. 2.5 minutes, Carolina. Let's hear a popping noise. Let's see. Pick is in.
Going down.
I think they're going to wind... Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. What's that mean?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Saw a tweet. Panthers draft a punter in the first round.
Oh,
God.
that would be so funny.
That would be chaos. Keith is asking again, how many QBs go into round 1 now that the draft is shaping up the way it's shaping?
I still think 3.
Right now? Yeah, that's the number I would think too.
All right.
I want to point out, Chris said it's the first time since 2013 that no QBs were taken in the top 5.
Yep, and that was the EJ Manuel draft, a draft that a
Ooh,
lot of people
okay.
compared this to. Uh-oh.
I just saw the Panthers pick.
Yep. Good pick. You want to guess, Tyler?
It
Did
is.
they take Malik Willis?
Nope.
No.
Nope.
Then it's Evan
I
Neal.
would... Nope.
The other one.
Ekwonu?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
The big round belly. First one off the board.
Ekwonu, in my opinion, is the best tackle in this draft.
Since Matt... I have him at 2, but we could have guessed it because Matt Rule was so adamant about wanting to run the ball more, so obviously he's gonna pick the best run blocker.
Well, in my opinion, if you would have picked the best run blocker, it would have been Trevor Penning. 99.9 PFF run blocking grade. Just nasty, but your mileage is going to vary about what his projection is because he is rough in pass protection.
Against kids.
Well, Missouri Valley is pretty dang good. Like, they'd probably be the 7th or 8th best conference. Basically like playing in a G5, but I feel that.
But yeah, I get it. They had to take a tackle, and now the phones are probably ringing in San Francisco.
Do the Giants trading out here is a real possibility. I am fascinated to see if they trade out because they have no cap space to sign their draft class right now, and James Bradbury, like they still don't know what to do with him.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron says we're lining up to get an awesome wide receiver. That's a possibility.
I would be excited.
Chris Olave, no matter what.
See, I've always said if Hamilton falls, you run up and grab him. He's a unicorn.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to see that defense with Hamilton and Harrison Smith because you have so many schematic possibilities if that happens.
Yeah, and Bynum would get plenty of time playing big nickel or wherever. And remember, he was drafted as a corner, moved to safety. So there's all sorts of possibilities with that.
He was drafted as a safety, but
he was a corner
Vikings
coming out of
announced him
college.
as a safety, so
Yeah.
it was already yeah. But I don't think that's the position he's going back to because that was a good reason they moved him. And obviously, this move seems like it was the right move for now because he played very well at safety. So I don't. But you could use him and on some 3 safety looks, especially if you have Harry or Hamilton close to the box. You can just have still 2 deep safeties with one of them and Bynum deep and one of them close to the line of scrimmage.
I think what's really interesting about Hamilton, kind of something we talked about with Isaiah Simmons, the unicorn element. He doesn't have to do anything traditionally. You can play him in the box. You could use him as a middle linebacker on running downs, and then you have the ability to have him both play the run, and then he can drop into coverage. Like, you can be so multiple. You could run like penny sets where you run penny is 3 corners and a safety, but you could run like 3 safeties with like all the time. Like, I love the idea of Hamilton, and I would love it as the pick, but this is the way things are shaping up for the Vikings is inherently fun.
That top that he's wearing, tux top with the green and white stripes.
It's awesome. And I think we need to start, like, obviously I've talked ad nauseum about it, but I think the conversation about drafting Malik Willis needs to really start happening because he's probably going to end up there. And if he's going to be available at pick 12, that needs to be a conversation. If you believe in him, you take him. Do they believe
100%.
in him? But the way the quarterback position is trending, it's trending towards exactly what Malik Willis brings to the table. Exactly what the top 4 quarterbacks brought to the table last year. They were more technical in passing and how they saw things downfield, their progressions and all that stuff. But Willis has all the traits. And the success of Josh Allen is going to convince a football team that they can get the same out of Malik Willis. But when are they going to be willing to take that shot? That's the big question right now. Sean, I do. I am drinking a Lake Foster beer. It is delicious.
Chris Thompson, to answer your question, I am watching the ESPN stream because it's local on my ABC channel over the air. No delays.
Looks like the Giants might actually, like, I'm behind. Like, I've got 3.5 minutes left on the clock. But looks like they're going to take it.
Yeah, I have the pick.
Yeah, they're taking it. I saw it.
Is it Malik Willis?
No.
Nope. I know a German draft guy who was very adamant of them taking Malik Willis at 5, and
it's a good pick for them. Great night for them.
Was certain about that.
Knowing Joe Shane and where he came from with Brandon Beane, this is probably Evan Neal.
Yep, you got it.
Yep.
Great night for them.
Like, it couldn't have gone any better. But they knew that they were going to get a tackle that they coveted, and I was hearing they were coveting Evan Neal at 5. They got Thibodeaux at 5, Evan Neal at 7.
Great.
Just build through the trenches. Now, that's starting 5 in the offensive line because you're probably going to end up playing Evan Neal at guard early because he started his freshman year guard, and then he started sophomore year right tackle, last year at left tackle. So he's got versatility. The whole thing with the offensive line is it's a weak link system. So as long as you don't have anybody that's atrociously bad, you're fine. So just plug him in wherever you want. You've got Matt Peart on the right side, who I think is a good football player. Andrew Thomas has really grown on the left side for the Giants. Now Daniel Jones is going to have a lot less excuses. This is going to be a really fun football team to watch because maybe Daniel Jones now has a chance.
Well, anybody taking at this level should be at least average in their rookie season. They won't have reached their peak, but they should be at least average.
Yeah, I'm a bit lower on Evan Neal than most are because I have some issues with him in bad positions because of it, which is weird because of his athleticism. But he got on the ground a bit too often for me. He was out of control a bit too often. But if you can coach that out, he's a home run pick because of all the physical tools he has. And the Giants really could be one of the big winners today because they got Thibodeaux, they got Neal, and if Neal pans out, like that could be an absolute home run class.
Well, they lost enough to deserve it, but yeah.
Look at him. That man is 6'7", 340. He doesn't look it at all. That's just a well-proportioned, well-built human being. And while he has some balance issues, he's been improving on those. And when you're 6'7", you're going to have some balance issues just naturally because you're such a large human. Like, if he can keep growing with those balance issues, this is a man who could be a dominant force. The Falcons are a real turning point, too, because they just need good football players. Wide receiver makes sense. If you want Calvin Ridley 2.0, Garrett Wilson, it makes the most sense. Jameson Williams, if you want the burner, if you think Ridley might be willing to come back. Long term, they don't have to worry about the short term with him because they have that flexibility with how they're constructing this rebuild. But I still think Kyle Hamilton should be the pick because he's just too good of a football player.
Tyler, I'm going to leave this for you. I am zero balance, need to refill, and I'm going to take a quick break.
You've what?
Got it covered for the next 10 minutes or so. Got it?
All right. For some reason, I didn't hear anything. There we go. I can hear again.
All right. I'm taking a quick break because I need beer.
Okay.
I'll be gone about 10 minutes, maybe a little bit less. I'll have my phone with me. You're running the show while I'm gone. Got it?
Dave, next year, do what I'm doing right now. You can't see it. But I have a Yeti-style cooler right next to me filled with beer and ice. I was making sure I was prepared, and I recommend it because let me tell you, being able to just reach down and grab your next one, tremendous.
I'll be right back.
All right. Fantastic. Falcons are, I believe, still on the clock. We just got a question from Keith. Would you want to take the over on 2.5 QBs in round 1 for a 6-pack? Keith, you got a deal. I will take the over on that because I would have bet the under because the under 2.5 was like plus 500, which that's just tremendous odds for the fact that you may not get a team willing to trade up. I still think it's going to happen, even though but that value is just way, way, way too good. Matt Corral is a guy I think somebody's going to trade up for because Matt Corral is just next. He has the next level tools, but you're talking about the progressions in front of you and how he runs an offense. RPO heavy systems have not shown to translate because you're doing a lot of half field reads. You're watching a lot of pre-snap stuff. Can he make that jump? Genuinely don't know, but I think if you want to take that shot, that's what you do. Falcons pick apparently is in.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to guess it's Kyle Hamilton.
Nope.
Different
Garrett
position.
Wilson.
Nope.
Right position, different player.
Drake London.
Yep.
Drake London. Okay.
Kind of a shock, yeah.
Well, it kind of gives you the interesting element of the Twin Towers, right? So you have Kyle Pitts, who's also like a 6'4" unicorn. And you have Drake London, who wins in a very similar way to Michael Thomas. Short area quickness, using route running savvy to flip a corner's hips so then you could take advantage of leverage. And he understands how to box out. You could tell he's a former basketball player. Uses his body positioning to really separate himself from defenders. And even though he's not necessarily the fastest guy, he's got enough quickness and he's good after the catch. I think this is a really interesting selection. And you're not going to find guys like Drake London every day. You can find guys that are built similarly to Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, but that alpha, that true X on the outside is something that's not going to be easy to find. And now you don't have to position Kyle Pitts as the X. You can use him as a Z, a big slot in line, and you can be more versatile. And you could stack them next to each other and just be like, hey, try and figure this out. But I really like this pick from a fit standpoint. Plus, Drake London is a willing and capable blocker, which is something you have to have in a wide zone scheme. He was the number 5 receiver on my board.
Yeah, me too, around that.
But all of the top 5 were first-round grades. So it's not like I had them separated by this wide margin.
Right.
I wish we would have got athletic testing from Drake London because I wanted to see how genuinely fast he was.
Yeah, I wanted to see that 40 as well.
If he was sub 46, I'd feel way more comfortable with this pick. It's just there's too much we don't know.
All the receivers that the Vikings
Olave.
Yeah. All the receivers that the Vikings like, or are rumored to like, are all still there 4 picks away, so that's interesting.
Well, London was one of them, at least early. We've heard from Doogie today about Jameson Williams and Garrett Wilson. Well, we saw Chad Graff drop Chris Olave in his column yesterday. So who really knows? But all we do know about the wide receiver position in the Vikings is Keenan McCardell really stood on a soapbox and was trying to convince everybody else that they shouldn't take a wide receiver. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh no, I was it was interesting to me that Kwesi straight up leaked that to the media at his press conference. And I don't know, I mean, that speech probably happened, but I don't know how much of it was also smoke to get people to think that they genuinely weren't interested in a wide receiver.
Yeah, I wonder if they were interested in somebody completely different, which is why that was kind of leaked. Maybe they're interested in a wide receiver that nobody's really talking about. Maybe it is that Chris Olave. Maybe they're interested in getting a corner. Like Keith just said in the chat, total draft bait to try to be smoke. I think it could be to try and convince somebody to trade up, to go jump them to get that guy. I'm still a little surprised we haven't seen or heard any steam, more steam regarding Kansas City. I think this pick is going to be Trevor Penning.
Seahawks pick is in.
Trevor Penning makes sense. They beat their own.
He isn't that pick.
So they took Charles Cross?
I saw it.
Yes.
Yep. Right position.
I don't understand the Cross pick. I love Charles Cross. For what they're trying to do, I didn't think Charles Cross fit. They're trying to run the football and play a true running style. And then Charles Cross? Like, can he be a great run blocker? Sure, but there's so much projection to happen there. I thought Penning was going to be that guy. I'll tell you, Charles Cross is a better pick than Trevor Penning, but the fit is just, it's a little weird. But at least they picked a really good football player at requisite value, which is something that the Seahawks have been very bad at in recent years. But we are we're 2 picks away from the Vikings. Kyle Hamilton is still on the board.
It's getting there. Malik Willis will maybe be there as well.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that that Russell Wilson begged the Seahawks to get good pass blockers, and right when he leaves, they get the best pass blocker in the draft.
Right.
All right.
Let Drew cook.
Jermaine Johnson I think is really in play for the Jets here.
Hopefully, I don't want him, so please get him off the board.
Yeah.
If Jermaine Johnson was 21, I'd be all in. I love what Jermaine Johnson brings to the table, but that age thing is I think is gonna be that really big barrier for Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. If he goes here, and then you have Hamilton available for the Commanders, I think Hamilton's gonna go, unless they decide they're gonna want to prioritize Garrett Wilson. I don't know if they're going to be willing to take corner at 12 because of what the value would be for the corners available. Worst case scenario for me would be you get another wide receiver off the board and Kyle Hamilton's off the board. And then all of a sudden, are we, guys, I know we said Charles Cross, but Seattle's still on the clock on my end. Are we sure?
Yeah.
That's what all the media is reporting.
Yeah, he just tweeted hold up because the Seahawks are fielding trade calls. But I think the last second trade done, but otherwise it's gonna be Charles Cross.
Oh,
okay,
interesting. Yeah, I'm still on the clock, but that's what Twitter said, so we'll see.
Yeah, if draft diamonds open, they are always very reliable with this stuff.
Yeah. All right. We've got producer Dave back in the chair. Hopefully he filled the cooler, has it right next to him. My AirPods are finally charged, so I'm going to put those back in because I hate wearing these headphones. I've had this thing plugged in nonstop, but it's like a non-Apple charger, so whatever. All right, I'll be back.
Okay, now he's saying it's Chuck. It's definitely Chuck.
It's Cross.
So
cool.
they didn't get a trade done, I guess. I mean, I'm pretty sure that because Willis is still on the board, so I expect the Commanders also to wind the clock down until like the very end. If there are teams calling for the pick, and if the Commanders don't get a trade done, the Vikings might be in the prime position to trade down and get some picks.
Who's trading
Now,
up though?
To pair with what Tanishka just said,
If
what's
Willis
the
is
farthest
still
you're
on
willing to
the
trade down?
board,
Yeah. The Vikings are going to be able to pick from one of Willis, Hamilton, and their top wide receiver. Unless their top wide receiver is Drake London, then their wide receiver 2. How far would you be willing to move down? Are you willing to go down to 29? Are you willing to go down to 20? Is 17 the farthest you're willing to go? Like this is where those.
Yeah, but you want to trade down that
if we
far.
also get 30.
Well, it depends on the haul.
Yeah.
I would do it for 29.94 and a first next year, in a heartbeat.
Yep. I'd probably do it for 29.30 and whatever they would offer to.
Because it was reported this week that people are saying there's only 18 to 23 real first rounders in this draft. Are you trading out of that real first rounder type position? You're going to have to take quite a haul. And if you do, is Kwesi looking more towards 2023 than he is 2022 with the wolves breathing down their neck? We want to be competitive now. Get the guy now that starts.
I feel like New York's been on the clock forever.
I mean, what the Cowboys are willing to get to go up, so they reportedly inquired about the Vikings pick, which was reported by Darren Wolfson, I think, but we'll see. We don't know if their target is even still on the board.
And here we go. Going to the Seahawks. He doesn't look real happy. Now he's smiling.
They just told him Drew Lock is his quarterback.
Oh man.
And he's gonna have to learn run blocking.
Yeah.
But hey, Seattle's a beautiful place to be. I'll give it that.
I think Jets are either wide receiver or Jermaine Johnson.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
This could be a low-key penning spot too. I don't know how they value penning because there's always been the talk of Ekwonu or Neal, but if they really don't believe in Mekhi Becton, who's rumored to be at 400 pounds last year during the season, this could be an offensive lineman. If I were the Jets, I would pass on Jermaine Johnson. I'd take a receiver. Get a guy, help Zach Wilson.
I agree.
And then do edge rusher with 1 or 2 of 35 and 38, or move back up and get one. There are guys, Boye Mafe, Arnold Ebiketie. If you want to go further into the second round, Nick Bonito, Drake Jackson, Carl Loftus. There are guys. Mm-hmm. There are good guys that you can get later.
Oh, hold on.
Okay.
Jets pick is in.
Hold on.
Yep.
What is it?
Just saw it. Yep.
Nick, I see you in the green room.
Garrett
wide
Wilson.
Receiver.
Yeah, you got it.
Yep.
Boom. Hold on. Switching things up a bit.
All right. With Garrett Wilson off the board, now we're looking at one of Kyle Hamilton or Malik Willis, guaranteed to be there. And this is going to be a really fascinating conversation as we welcome the most handsome lawyer in the state of New York, Nick Olson. Nick, it's good to chat with you, my friend. How are you?
Good to be here, Tyler. I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
This
Good.
is shaping up to be a very good draft for the Minnesota Vikings. Kyle Hamilton's going to be on the board. Obviously, I know you are a big proponent of we're getting a big proponent of getting Sauce Stingley, and that's unfortunately not going to happen. But there are still some really intriguing pieces for the Minnesota Vikings to either take or get some capital in a trade back. When you're looking at where the board is right now, because we know Garrett Wilson is coming off the board to the New York Jets, what would your ideal scenario be with where we're sitting right now?
I'd say there's two options, and I don't really think you can go wrong. I think one of Kyle Hamilton, Jameson Williams, or a trade down is the option. I think those are all great scenarios. I personally would prefer Kyle Hamilton or a trade down to Jameson Williams, just because I feel like Jameson Williams would be obviously less of an impact player, given one, the injury, two, it's a crowded wide receiver room, but still, we're talked about maybe the best wide receiver in the draft before the injury, in the championship game. So would be happy with any of those outcomes. As between Hamilton versus a trade down, that's tough. It would depend on the trade offer. Like if Pittsburgh is offering 20 in their future first, I would think that would be hard to say no to. Hamilton's a great player, but he's also a safety. You can find those later in this. There's a lot of safeties I really like on day two. There are other safeties who are always available in free agency. Cam Bynum, still on the roster, looked pretty good. Only played like 200 snaps, but looked pretty good. So I don't see a wrong answer there. If they stay put, my guess would be Kyle Hamilton. But I think you got to watch out for Washington, see what they do. Otherwise, I think trade down might be the offer. So I don't know. What do you think?
I'm thinking Washington goes one of two ways. They're either going to take Kyle Hamilton or they're going to take Chris Olave. Because the one thing with Washington is they really love to tip their picks. Ron Rivera and Marty Herney, that group, they spent a lot of time with Chris Olave at his pro day. They are not afraid of tipping their hand, and I think that is a real possibility at 11. And that would push Hamilton down to 12. And then, Nick, we've been talking about it as well because no quarterback has gone yet. Malik Willis could be on the board at 12. Would that be something that, one, you would be comfortable pulling the trigger on, and two, with how Kwesi values positions and how it's a very forward-thinking process, would he take Malik Willis at 12? And would you feel comfortable with that?
I think Kwesi, obviously quarterback is the most valuable position in football, one of the most valuable positions in sports. So if you believe that Malik Willis can be the guy, you take him. I think it's really that simple. At the same time, I think there are a lot of people who don't believe Malik Willis is going to be the guy. I think if there's a place Malik Willis can go and sit and develop for a year, he's got a great situation in Minnesota with Kirk Cousins, kind of on a quasi franchise tag. That's effectively what he's on. The ability to move him. He does have a no trade clause, so Cousins will have some say, but if you feel like you can resolve that situation, take a swing, swing for the fences, that would be the Malik Willis pick. At the same time, if one of these teams that wants a quarterback, like say Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh kind of, I don't think it's any secret they're really locked into a quarterback at some point. If that's their guy, 12 is the spot I think they move up to take him, because they're not going to let the Saints, they're not going to let somebody else, Seattle trade up, somebody else trade up and take them away from their clutches and have them settle for somebody who's not. They
trades their pick to the
Saints just traded up.
Saints.
Ooh.
No. Saints.
I doubt it for
Spicy.
Hamilton, of all people. So Hamilton might be at 12.
It could be for Hamilton. They do
could.
have a needed safety. They're starting Daniel Sorensen right now at safety. They lost
right,
Malcolm
Marcus
Jenkins and
Williams
Marcus
is
Williams.
Wow.
Well,
True.
not
I
only
bet
Marcus
the
Williams.
Bigs traded up for a receiver. That's my guess. Because they got a need. Who do they have? They've got the ghost of Michael Thomas out there, Treylon Burks. not the deepest wide receiver room. So when I look at who's there, Jameson Williams.
Hold on.
Williams and Olave make more sense than Burks.
Right, especially with Michael Thomas.
I know with all this excitement going on right now, we're getting closer to the pick. We have somebody in the green room, and I've got to bump somebody off. Tanishka,
Sounds good.
We will see you Saturday, and we look forward to it. You have been great tonight. I appreciate that. And
Awesome. I'll see you guys.
big round of applause for Tanishka, everybody. Woohoo!
All right. See ya.
See ya. And
I have to do
now,
it quietly, so I don't wake anybody up here.
boom,
Who are we waiting on? Is it Matthew?
Matt. Why is he not pulling up?
All
for
right,
some
Kindred
reason?
Skulls representing.
Yes. There he is.
Can you
Matt
hear me?
Freeze, the
There
one
we
and
are.
only.
Hey, everybody. How's it
What's up,
going?
Matt? You came in just in time. The Saints
Yeah.
are on the
Okay.
clock. They traded up.
And the Saints traded a 3rd and a 4th round pick in addition to 16 for the 11th pick.
Wow.
Now,
Seems
if
like
the
a
Chargers
good
want to
haul.
trade up with the Vikings, that's probably the cost.
What was the haul?
Yeah.
3rd and a 4th.
3rd and
A
a 4th.
3rd, yep.
3rd and a 4th.
Okay.
That's what I thought it would cost to move up from 19. So, it's probably about value.
Because
Saints
I
love their
was
trade
looking
ups.
at the Rich Hill trade chart, because I was looking at the Chargers. 79 covers the difference between 12 and 17, but a lot of these guys, they'll pay premiums to go get one specific player. So for the Vikings, that could be a really interesting and achievable thing to really get extra value and then give you some ammo to move up, maybe back into the first round.
Did you mention trade chart?
Yes, I did.
And there it is. In this one, I have combined the Rich Hill, the Jimmy Johnson, and the Harvard. Because the Harvard gets a little bit more granular when it comes down to those later picks. Because I don't believe, the 226 pick in the 7th round is the same equivalent as the 262nd. It helps. There we go. We have our picks highlighted, and we have the values of each chart.
Yeah, absolutely.
Matt-
So that the Saints are always extremely willing to send draft picks, obviously, and just not make the picks. It's not surprising me.
But when your roster is that good, you can't squeeze all those 7th rounders on there. So that's a problem they've had for a while.
Yeah.
So Matt, if Saints say take a wide receiver, do you take Hamilton? Do you take Jameson Williams if he's there? Do you take Jermaine Johnson, or do you field trade down offers? What's your preference?
My preference right now is Kyle Hamilton. I want to add to the secondary still with our first pick. I guess my first preference. My first preference would be Kyle Hamilton. My second preference is trade down. Now, I think there is a slight option to be able to trade down and still get Kyle Hamilton if we go down just a little bit. Like, I know the Eagles seem to be interested in moving up for a wide receiver, or there might be another team that's interested in moving up a little bit for a wide receiver to get in on the run of guys. Because it sounds like the Texans really want Chris Olave at 13. So if somebody wants Chris Olave, they're going to have to come up.
What? The Saints picked Chris Olave.
Okay. Well, there we
Oh,
have
that
it.
takes that one.
Wow. Okay, so Jameson Williams on the board, Kyle Hamilton on the board, Vikings on the clock. Oh my gosh.
They had to have been
Somebody
listening
was
to
on the
Tyler
board
this
first.
whole week.
Somebody-
My heart hurts, but at least he's not going to Green Bay. I can live with it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
My
And
favorite
the
player
Packers.
last year was Peyton Turner. He went to the Saints. My favorite player this year is Chris Olave. He went to the Saints.
There
You
seems
know
to
what?
be a trend there.
I mean,
He's a great compliment to Michael Thomas. He's a phenomenal technician route running. He can take the top off of the defense. Like, Jameis Winston's going to have fun with him.
also, the Packers are going to get into a really tough situation right now because they have to trade up, basically, if they still want to get Jameson Williams, who is the last wide receiver of this absolute top tier. So the draft is not going well
No,
for the Packers
if the
right now.
Vikings get out of the draft without the Packers having Jameson Williams or Chris Olave on their team, I think it's a win for the Vikings, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh man! So now we get to
The
see Quincy put
Lions
his
have
stamp
traded
on it.
up to
Really
12.
to see
What?
he does.
Who
The
won?
Lions
traded up
have
to 12?
traded up. The Lions have traded up to pick 12. So I guess I won't see the Vikings pick today.
So we're going
Unless
back
they
to
trade back.
32?
What?
Oh my god!
I guess
I was
the
just
line
told that
into the
another
division trade?
That's got to be a howl.
I was just told the
Lions
Steelers
got
are
And that's
working
working
on
on
back,
got to
right.
be for Willis. That's got to be for Willis. And yikes, that has to be a hole, an absolute hole.
I think we probably get 32, 34, and then additional capital next year, right? Because they have 32 and 34.
Wow. All right, so it's going to be a long night.
Yeah.
Traded back to
Hey,
what?
I'll say
32
this:
and-
if we get 32-34 and the Rams first next
Yeah.
year, that's a big win. If
I
that's
don't think
the
they did
trade,
that. That's like
Yeah.
3 first-round picks. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
So let's prep the trade chart here, Dave, because we're gonna need to do some
Okay.
calculations.
Yep.
Well,
Rap
I'll bring
sheet
it-
just
I'll bring it up
reported
in,
Lions are officially up.
In my spreadsheet form, but we'll bring it up real quick here.
Oh,
As I
wait.
drop Olave.
Detroit 32, 34 and 66 for the Vikings, 12 and 46.
Wait, hold
What
on.
was it?
What?
No, that doesn't make any sense.
32, 34, 66 for 12 and 46.
That's it? That's it?
Repeat
Looks
that.
like it.
Like a lot.
32. What are those?
32, 34 and 66 for 12 and 46.
I don't think that's enough value if you're throwing in 46.
Yeah, that looks like what it is.
Yeah. That's,
So
that's a bit
that's
disappointing,
definitely
to be
interesting.
honest.
Let's see what the trade charts say, because we were talking about trading back right with the Chiefs for just 29 and 30.
Mm-hmm.
Those values between 32 and 34, I can't imagine are that far off. But we're definitely going to lose this by the Jimmy Johnson chart.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure this is going to be for Willis. So
I would have to imagine
The
this is
Vikings-
for quarterback, yeah.
yeah. So the Vikings are basically giving their division rival a shot for a quarterback for a haul. That's a bit disappointing.
You know, I wonder if they may be going for Jameson Williams here.
That one makes sense. They got like no receivers in Detroit.
They got Amon-Ra St. Brown. They have DJ Chark on a 1-year prove-it deal, and they have nothing long-term. They did just give Hawkinson the 5th-year option, but that
Have you guys figured out the numbers yet?
I'm crunching them right now. So, Rich Hill chart. Vikings gave up 475 points, and they got back 435. So they take a little bit. They take a bit of a haircut, even by the Rich Hill chart. So,
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's
they-
based off of historical data. We're going to get crushed by Jimmy Johnson, although I'm not sure I put much stock by Jimmy Johnson. What's the AV chart?
The Lions select Jameson Williams.
Okay.
okay.
So it's
There it
not
is.
for a quarterback. At least.
and then the only top 5 wide receiver left is Treylon Burks. And they're all gone by the top 4 receivers are gone by 12. That's crazy. But it really shows that the NFL is valuing these rookie wide receiver deals as a long-term play, considering what we've seen with the market over the past 2 months with Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, so absolutely. I think the wide receiver deals play into this, Tyler. I totally agree. Because you're not going to have like, this is like $8 million a year, $8 million a year. I don't know what the cost of guys at 12 is compared to the $30 million a year deals almost that guys are getting at this point. But yeah, I going back to the trade value a little bit, I do think we lose value here. This is not kind of a trade I would have pulled the trigger on, especially since we're dropping back from 46, where I think, that middle of the second round is actually a pretty good value portion of the draft. I'm kind of interested to see if there's any sort of future picks involved in this at all. If the full thing comes out and we get some sort of future draft selection.
Well, if I did my math right, for the Harvard chart, the Lions gave up 634 points and we gave up 436. So we came up ahead on that one.
Yeah, and that makes sense because that one's based on the actual performance of players. Going that and really the difference between the top and the bottom, like the middle of the first round and the bottom of the first round probably is not that different in terms of the actual performance of players moving forward. But I do think it's kind of relevant, especially the Rich Hill chart, because we lose value based on what teams have done in the past. And granted, this is a weak class in general, right? It's not seen as a particularly strong class, so maybe you are more comfortable with moving back a few spots. But it's really just kind of an interesting decision. Especially, I go back to that swap of our second round pick for their, third round pick at the beginning of the third round is really a bit of a concern.
That's ugh.
So, Nick, any other thoughts on kind of trade value, or any thoughts maybe on the move back to 32? Who players in that range we might be targeting?
I mean, I would circle Andrew Booth with a I won't say pen, but a pencil certainly. I think he fits all of what Kwesi's looking for in a cornerback athletically. You look at what he does. Kaiir Elam. Sorry?
Who went
The
to
Eagles
the
are
Texans?
trading up to 13. The Eagles are trading up. So
you knew how he was going to make his move.
Yeah. The Texans
This
get
could be Burks.
15, 124, 162, and 166 for 13.
Okay, so fourth, what? Is that a couple of fourths and a sixth, or a couple of a fourth, a fifth, and a sixth? To move up 3 spots.
It's I think 1/4 and 2 6. As I see it right here. Oh, fifth round pick. I don't know. I just saw the numbers. Might be 5th or 6th. It's right at the border, I think.
So we've talked about the trade a little bit. We've talked about just the value of that. Tyler, do you have names at 32 now that we pivot, right? Because those are our picks now, 32 and 34, that you're thinking about off the cuff.
Off the cuff, yeah, I guess it really depends on what position you want to go. You can really attack anything you want, and the one thing that really intrigues me is how Kwesi is going to value age the farther you move down the board, because I think it's more important earlier than it is later, because there's just more upside available. So I do like what Nick said about Andrew Booth Jr. I do know that because of some of his medicals, and he has a history of soft tissue injuries, some teams that have him very low. I think Kaiir Elam's an interesting one. He turns 21 in a couple months. Young guy, great impress, better in off coverage than people want to give him credit for. He's got all the tools that you would want in a star corner. Can he fix those Xavier Rhodes like penalties that he had last year on a disastrous Florida defense? If you want to go wide receiver, there's a outside chance Treylon Burks makes it there, but with how the board is falling, I don't think he does. I think he probably goes at 13 here. And then you could talk about edge rusher. Guys like Karlaftis, Boye Mafe, Arnold Ebiketie, Lewis Cine, Daxton Hill, the safeties. I had in my what I would do mock draft for the Vikings. I took Daxton Hill because I think you could do a lot of different things with him. He could play corner. He can play outside in a pinch.
Hold on.
Be a rover, be a deep safety, do a little bit of everything. There is a lot of talent, and I think as you alluded to earlier, Matt, the depth of this class is between 15 and 70. Now the Vikings have 4 picks between 15 and 70.
What are you seeing, Jonas?
The Philadelphia Eagles are selecting John Davis.
Jordan
wow.
Davis. They wanted to move in front of the
They
Ravens
love their
for it.
trenches there. They love their trenches. Oh, wow. You knew he was going at some point. A little surprised, but that's your Haloti Ngata replacement or succession. Just as he played in Philly, so that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I kind of thought he might go later on to like the Chargers. There was some intrigue about Jordan Davis to the Vikings for a while. I didn't necessarily see the fit there, but obviously tested out of this world was arguably the best player on that Georgia defensive line. So I'm surprised they gave up that much draft capital though, because I could have seen Jordan Davis falling a little bit farther. But I guess Howie got his guy. Good for the Vikings though. I don't see them, wanting defensive tackles necessarily, unless Wyatt falls to 30 or something, 32. So. I want to jump in here and mention something. Eric tweeted a summary of the trade per PFF WAR, and the Vikings win the trade pretty much across the board. The mean, the median, the 75th and 25th percentile. It says the Vikings win 57% of the time. Overall, it's 1.27 to 1.13. So if you really value how PFF uses their wins above replacement data, the Vikings ended up winning the trade. So with how teams build their own analytical models and really prioritize how they utilize them and building them for how they want and adapting, there is a way around that says that the Vikings genuinely did win this trade. So I'm going to pull back on my reservations and at least wait it out. But giving up 46 really stings.
Yeah, so I think from an analytical perspective, I would agree there that ultimately probably the Vikings win the trade with the picks. The thing that kind of matters to me, I guess, in this instance is kind of playing the market, right? Where traditionally teams value picks a certain way, and it's even if you still think you're getting a good deal, if you can get a better deal, like you're still missing out in terms of that opportunity cost. And I think that's what happened a little bit just in term. But I mean, if the team's willing to trade back and they've got guys that they like there, this now gives us the opportunity to get 2 more blue chip players, right? 34 is obviously 12 picks ahead of 26. I think there are going to be guys who are considered first round values that drop there, like, just from reading the tea leaves and stuff on my end, like I don't think George Karlaftis is getting taken in the first round. I don't think Devontae Wyatt's getting taken in the first round. Just from the way things have been trending for those guys. So I think there will be guys there.
I think one element that we haven't talked about here, gentlemen, with this trade, we just did an interdivisional trade to let the Lions go back up to 12.
Mm-hmm.
And get a wide receiver, who our poor cornerbacks are going to have to defend for the next decade. So, when you got Cam Dantzler running a 4.57, and Patrick Peterson, who's no longer a spring chicken, going up against Jameson Williams, just don't have to worry about it as much this year. But we'll see long term. That'll be a fun trade to go back in the future. We'll see what happens.
Maybe they're just betting on the Lions being the Lions. Now, I have a question. How much influence
go for David.
Does Kwesi get from being friends with the thought process over at PFF?
Do we know if the Vikings are one of PFF's clients?
Yes, all 32 teams are.
Well,
in one shape or another.
Yeah, but there's different levels. Some teams are more invested with PFF than others. Like, do we know what kind of level they're on? if that makes sense.
Well, we do know that Kwesi is personal friends with one of the members of PFF that happens to join us quite often.
Mm-hmm.
Are you asking from like the PFF value perspective or just the construction of the model in general? Because I think that probably the model that the Vikings will have constructed is going to look somewhat similar to the PFF model. Just from what you're saying there.
Well, I'm asking how much influence. I suspect the Vikings build their own models, right? But
Right.
how much influence is that taken? How much is that model modeled after what PFF does? To use the same word twice.
You know, that's a good question. I'd imagine that they would either arrive to similar conclusions. Like I know, you know, there was that Harvard study with WAR. I don't know how closely that mirrors with what PFF does in terms of their WAR. I haven't really dug deep into that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, for me, you know, when you look at the results-based draft value models, the lower picks, like a trade like the Vikings, is going to win for the Vikings. And then if you look at the historically based models, or the one that Jimmy Johnson came up with, like it values higher picks a lot more. So it doesn't surprise me at all that the Vikings with an analytical model would get maybe a little less value, be comfortable with taking a little less value compared to what you would get traditionally with picks.
Yeah, but you got to remember the Jimmy Johnson model was built when rookies got whatever they negotiated, and we were having, you know, quarterbacks drafted in round one that would make tens of millions of dollars and not take a single snap. That sort of changed once the CBA, NFL, and this players union agreed to a rookie pay scale, and now we're looking more at performance than pay, because that first round draft choice, you know, back with Sam Bradford, equated to $50 million. Now,
Yeah,
The Ravens pick is in.
Ravens pick is in.
The Ravens, yeah, and it's a very Ravens pick to say it that way.
It's Kyle Hamilton, isn't it?
It is Kyle Hamilton.
They always take those falling stars. You know, just happens to fall in their laps every year. So,
Yeah.
So they got Hamilton. Damn
Hey,
it.
that's a
had
great
it, too.
pick, right? I think
Yeah.
we were all on board with Kyle Hamilton. Well, I don't know how you felt, Tyler, but I think we were all, Nick and I were definitely on board with Kyle Hamilton at 12. So
He was number 2 on my board.
there you go.
I love Hamilton. Like
he's a great player.
the
that's a
Ravens
great
have the best
football.
secondary I may have ever seen constructed in modern day football.
Wow, strong words.
That's a little bit hot because
It's
the
a
Legion
little
of Boom
hot, but-
exists.
Like they have 2 All-Pro corners. They have great safeties on the back end. Like I can't think of any that I would view higher than this secondary right now. But probably the Legion of Boom. But this is a tremendous Ravens secondary.
Oh yeah, no, it's a fantastic group of players, right? So you have, man, I'm blanking on their one safety, but you have Peters and you have Marlon Humphrey, both coming back from injury. I think they're really in for kind of a bounce back season this year with Lamar, who was
They
hurt
signed
for the
Marcus
last
Williams.
rest of the games. Oh, that's right, they signed Marcus Williams. Totally forgot about that. So that upgrades them a little bit more in my eyes.
That's quite a safety duo right there. Marcus Williams and Kyle Hamilton. Woo.
No.
Love that pick for the Ravens. Don't blame the Vikings for moving down. I'm pretty happy with. I think they probably could have gotten more value, but I think it's a good trade down. I also feel like this is the rebuild part of Kwesi's competitive rebuild, right? They're not one Kyle Hamilton away from contending this year. They probably need multiple positions of need. This is an older roster. Kwesi saw what the Browns did, wants to get it younger. It's going to take multiple guys. So adding a third pick in the first 64 picks of the draft, I think helps the Vikings. But, you know, it's also an injection of youth. We're going to get multiple young guys here injecting youth into the town. So this is, I feel like, a little bit more of the competitive. This is the rebuild part of that competitive rebuild we heard so much about. So I like it from that aspect, but also would not have hated taking Kyle Hamilton at 12 because he's going to be a special player, I think.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I would have loved Hamilton at 12, but in the end, I think trading down was the move for the Vikings, and now they can just fill out this roster again because they have so many holes. Maybe not at the starting level, but they have a lot of holes behind them, and I think the reason why so many fans had the feeling that the Vikings had such terrible injury luck, which wasn't actually true. It was pretty average last year, but the feeling just got worse because the players too. So just an absolute catastrophe. So now they can get some guys in and get some substance back into this roster.
Yeah, I agree, Jonas. I think the depth is a really important component of the roster that we were frankly missing last year, right? And that comes from a couple of sources, whether it was missing on picks in the mid to late rounds in the past. You know, we got very limited results from our picks in the, say 2018 to 2020 drafts in the mid to late rounds, right? So being able to add players, especially being able to add two high level players at 32 and 34 are really going to help the depth of this roster.
So one interesting element to consider with this trade, I just pulled up Jason Fitzgerald from Over the Cap. He posted like with their model how everything breaks down, and the Vikings are going to be on the hook for about $3.1 more million in annual per year money. So that's going to eat into the salary cap for this season, assuming that they make all those picks and they don't end up trading them. So that's another element to keep in mind as well.
Who's on the clock now?
Houston.
I think I just read that the Eagles are trading up again with them. But
that's really funny.
That would be nuts.
That's hilarious.
If that turns out to be the case, that would be absolutely. I mean, oh no, just take it back. I just saw the pick for the Texans, and it's a surprise. Let me tell you this.
We got our first
Tyler Smith. Is it Tyler Smith?
Nope.
Who is it? Just tell us.
Yeah, Kenyon Green.
The guard?
Okay.
Kenyon Green, guard.
Yeah.
He does have tackle versatility, but I don't think he's an NFL tackle.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Damn, that's a reach.
Singling at 3, and now I guess they did trade down for this, so they got some extra ammo, but that's one way to build your roster. He's going to be a good player. I don't hate it. I'm surprised you take a guard that high.
My guess is they think he can play tackle. That would be my guess. But Nick Caserio does come from that New England way of thinking where they have had no problems in the past taking guards in the first round.
Yeah,
I mean, albeit they take their guards in at 32, but they value them a lot higher than other teams.
And I'm not sure they are looking for a tackle because they have Tunsil, they have Titus Howard, who's probably the right tackle. So I actually think that Kenyon Green was drafted to be a guard.
Yeah, I agree. I think Green's probably a guard for them. It is a little bit interesting. A lot of people had Zion Johnson as the top guard. But early on in the process, I think it was Green, and Johnson kind of rose through the Senior Bowl and other times there. So in the teens, I guess it doesn't shock me. This is kind of where we're talking about Trevor Penning going. This is kind of where we're talking about the start of the range for Tyler Smith, which I think is wild, but it is what it is. I wouldn't have been shocked if Zion Johnson went here. in this mid-teens range, late teens range. So if you have Kenyon Green over Zion Johnson, like, this doesn't surprise me too much, although I would have expected them to go off the board in the 20s, personally.
Shocker.
Thomas, I agree. I was hoping they'd get more value.
Yeah,
for the trade back.
I would have hoped they got more for moving down there
I think
too.
we all did.
Hold on. Big trade. The
What?
Ravens just traded Hollywood
Oh.
Brown and pick 100 to the Cardinals for 23.
Oh.
The Ravens are back in the first round.
What is happening here?
They got a
This-
first rounder for Hollywood Brown?
The Ravens
And-
gave up
and a
100, so they
third-round
gave us
pick.
a comp third. 2, but yes.
So they
Wow.
basically traded Hollywood Brown to move up from 100 to 23.
I mean, I don't know what the value of 100 is, but that's got to be a late first round pick or high early second. So it is functionally a first round pick. And that's a pretty interesting trade. Obviously, Hollywood
Brown
Brown.
only got 1 year left on his contract.
Yeah.
I guess they could exercise the 5th-year option now, but yeah,
Whoa.
that's another move of the Ravens, like they did with Orlando Brown, getting rid of the guy right before he gets his payday, and then injecting young talent.
What?
The Commanders are taking a receiver here, and it's not Treylon Burks.
Is it Pickens or
Damn.
Dotson?
Dotson.
What?
Wow.
This draft is now off the rails, man. Okay.
So I bet you that's why the Hollywood Brown trade went through, because I had seen that the Cardinals were really interested in Jahan Dotson, and with the wide receiver run, people weren't. They probably realized that they weren't going to get him. But tell us about Jahan Dotson, because I think he's a really good player, Tyler.
Yeah, Jahan Dotson is fantastic in space. He knows how to use his body, get the ball at the high point. Physical player, good route runner. I had him as like the 8th best receiver in this class, but honestly, anywhere from like 5 to 10, if you were to group them in almost any way, I'd feel pretty comfortable with it. It's really a pick your poison kind of group once you get past the top 4. And I think like it's when you talk about him being the 5th receiver off the board, it's fine value, but at 16, it feels a little early as far as when you look at the rest of the class. I would have preferred taking a shot at Christian Watson here with his high upside athleticism and how little he was actually featured in that North Dakota State offense. But pairing him with Terry McLaurin is going to be really, really fun for Carson Wentz, assuming he can get back on any kind of right track. Like overall, this is a good pick, but I wish they would have gotten a little bit more value for it.
But one thing, like, let me out how the Steelers right now when they are looking at the board and Malik Willis is still there.
Yeah, no, the Steelers have to be feeling pretty good about themselves. The Saints still have 19, I believe, right? And they're a threat to take a quarterback there. But outside of that, well, we're 17 the Chargers right now. So, they're obviously not taking a quarterback. You doubt the Eagles are taking a quarterback. They're going to wait until they have multiple first-round picks again next year, and the quarterback class is a little bit better, I think. And so Steelers sitting really, really pretty right now, getting the top quarterback on the board by waiting all the way to 20. And actually, I think this is the longest we've had to wait for a quarterback to come off the board since like the 90s, because EJ Manuel went 16 for the Bills back in 2013. So it's
Jim
it's really a
Druckenmiller
different draft.
in 1997 went 26 as the first guy off the board.
Yeah, so 1996 was
I
the last
think-
time we had to wait this long for a quarterback.
Tells you
we
how
weren't-
bad this class is.
And we weren't doing it
Especially
live.
now in the era of like, oh, you got to have a rookie contract, you got to get that 5th-year option, you got to build around your rookie contract star. Look at Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, everybody else. Yeah, maybe not this year. I mean, we're still going to see the quarterbacks go, but it's surprising to see them last this long.
The Eagles might actually be a nice target for a slight trade up for the Steelers, because then they would cover themselves against the Saints at 19, and it probably wouldn't cost that much to move up 2 spots, and the Eagles might want to get at least 1 or 2 picks back after they traded 4 picks for 13.
They can easily get a 4th round pick to go back 2 spots to 20. I've heard that the Steelers are not going to take quarterback in round 1, that they're going to prioritize trench play. But when you have Willis sliding down the board, maybe that thinking changes.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody knows how much I love Malik Willis, and Thor and I are the extreme outliers, and we think he is that guy and then some. Like, if you think he's that guy, this is like prime real estate to go trade up for him.
Yeah, Jonathan, at least all the receivers are going before Green Bay, too. So what does our receiver board look like at this point, Tyler, just in terms of guys? And who do you least want to go to Green Bay at wide receiver?
Treylon Burks is the guy I least want to go to Green Bay. I think the one that they're going to covet is Christian Watson, because it's a height, weight, speed guy, and they love their height, weight, speed guys. The ultimate worst nightmare is Chris Olave, because they would have used him like Devontae Adams, and he could fill that role. Will he ever be as good as Devontae Adams? I don't think so. But when you talk about stylistically, it makes sense. He'd be able to do a lot of the same things, and if you get a connection developed within a season, next year that could be lethal. Burks, with his he has a build of an X that you could play as a power slot. He's not quick, but once he gets going, you're not going to catch him. And you do a lot of like deep crossers, get him the ball in space and just let him take off. That could be really lethal for the Green Bay Packers. At this point, I don't see them taking receiver in the first round, because I think the only one you talk about, Burks and Watson, are the only ones I really feel with that kind of value. Sky Moore,
Pickens?
I think Pickens, there's some off-field stuff with him. You have the torn ACL. He doesn't know how to run a full route tree. He was massively underutilized. He's phenomenal with contested catches, led the nation, caught 68.8% of his contested catches, and he knows how to high point the ball and use his body in those situations. Can he develop as a true X? Can he learn all those little nuanced things that you need to do in the National Football League? I have questions about that. Plus, when you pair that he interviewed apparently really, really bad. He was in the car with running back Kenny McIntosh when McIntosh got in big trouble with the cops. Like, is he going to be a smart decision maker because he put himself in a situation? He didn't do anything wrong, but he was there. And that's how NFL teams think. Or if you're going to be in that situation there, are you going to be in a situation where you're going to be the culprit and you're going to make the wrong decision? So all those things are in play. Pickens is interesting, but I wouldn't take him in round 1. The only 2 wide receivers I'd take in round 1 are Watson and Burks. Alec Pierce is an interesting one, but he's a second-round guy. Calvin Austin III is one I think could sneak into the first round because his athletic comparison is Tyreek Hill, but he's 5'7", 180, and he plays with a bigger catch radius, but you're going to have to get him as a guy you want to get the ball in space to, which is exactly what they did at Memphis, and believe he can develop into a good Z. But you're taking an outlier size-wise in the first round because he has that kind of athletic profile. So yeah, that's a guy that probably goes round 2. But if Tutu Atwell goes 56, Calvin Austin will go top 50.
Fair enough. Jonas, you said Pickens in. Who do we got?
Yeah, the Chargers just selected Zion Johnson.
Zion Johnson. All right. I like that pick for them. Obviously, they needed help on the offensive line. He was my top guard in this class. My favorite. I think he's ready to plug and play day one. That helps them be competitive right away.
Matt,
Nick, we got the eyebrows raised. What's going on?
Important. Titans are trading A.J. Brown to the Eagles.
What?
Yeah. That's a Shefty bomb. And I'm guessing the Titans are probably getting pick 18.
I would have to imagine.
And then this is what I started talking about a month ago, and Matt, we alluded to it earlier. These wide receiver contracts. Teams are not going to pay the market value, but a team that will pay it is going to trade capital for it. Howie Roseman just got a running mate with Devonta Smith a guaranteed running mate. Like this draft is on all kinds of drugs. And this is the most entertaining draft I think I've ever been a part of.
This is amazing. So I think it's really, really interesting that we had no trades in the top 10, right? The top 10, everybody picked in order. Do we have a pick in or something?
No, we should.
Sorry, I'll keep going.
The Eagles paid 18 and a third-round pick for AJ Brown.
That's a lot better deal than the Cardinals got for Marquise Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god!
Like that's a star wide receiver you're getting for a first and a third round pick, who's young. That's you do have to pay him, but the Eagles are coming on a lot of cap space in a couple of years because of all of the old contracts that'll finally probably be off their books. So.
Wow. So did the Titans take a wide receiver here now? Because now they have nobody. Like Julio's a free agent, so I don't even know who their wide receiver one is.
Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, let's go.
I mean, they could just pick Treylon Burks and think that.
Please do.
Please
no wide receiver.
That would be fun. That would be absolutely fun. I mean.
Oh my gosh. That's madness. AJ Brown traded. I would never have guessed that coming. Holy smokes.
Now we got to see what happens with Deebo. But it's hard because we're running past the picks for Deebo to be traded.
And it's again bad news for the Packers because now you have, and it's probably gonna pick a wide receiver. I mean, they basically have to.
But
so the interesting thing, the Packers may not pick a wide receiver, and even before the run, they may not have taken a wide receiver. So we need to be worried about the Packers getting really good in the trenches. Logan Hall is the guy that would be nightmare for the Vikings and how they like to utilize those kind of bigger hybrid type guys, like the Rashawn Gary pick, how they utilize the Darius Smith. Logan Hall, 6'6", 283, can play 3-tech, 5-tech, a shade 4-eye. He can play an edge. I wouldn't want to do him as a wide 9, but you could put him as a 7-tech, and he has the flexibility, quickness, and speed to rush the passer from the outside. Like that's a guy that would be a nightmare for teams to really have to deal with. And then they could double down on secondary or edge at 28. Like, what if Daxton Hill was their guy? Like,
yeah,
they could come out of this with Tyler Smith from Tulsa, the tackle guard flexibility. If the Packers take him, that 20 years old, has a lot of potential, and they know how to develop offensive linemen. Like, it could shape up to be a better position for Green Bay because of the wide receiver run here.
So we're a Vikings show. We've talked a lot about the Packers here. Let's bring it back to the Vikings a little bit and see. We got a couple people asking in the chat what the Vikings might target at 32, 34. My number one need for the Vikings is still corner. I think if you go corner edge back to back, that's a really good look. I think you can even go corner safety back to back, honestly, like a Lewis Cine, although the rumors are out and they're usually pretty good with the Bucs. He might be going to the Bucs. Lewis Cine at that spot, Jalen Petrie from Baylor at that spot, Daxton Hill if he makes it that far are really interesting names to me.
What if you go corner?
A corner, I'd love it, but
like Booth and Elam. I think.
If we could get both Booth and Elam, I would love it. Trent McDuffie's still on the board, right?
McDuffie's still there. Kyler Gordon. You know what? I watched more. I was a little low on Kyler Gordon, and I watched a few more. Do we have news?
Oh,
sorry. I was gonna say I watched more Kyler Gordon. I really like him. So any of those guys at 32, 34, I think would be a win. There's still a lot of. I mean, Jermaine Johnson is still on the board. Surprisingly, there was a lot of talk about him. The local Prairie native. Trent McDuffie's still on the board. Tyler Linderbaum. He could fall to 32 and make a lot of sense just because there's only so many wide zone teams who need a center. As much as I love Garrett Bradbury, I think the Vikings are a wide zone team who need a center. So George Karlaftis is still on the board. There's a lot of good players. So it'll be really interesting. And you could also see just a wild card. You know, with that 5th-year option at 32, could we see Malik Willis? Could we see another quarterback?
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
So Jonas,
really
what do we got?
Yeah.
Is it Burks?
And yeah, it is Burks. It is Treylon Burks for the Titans.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
I love it. They
The ball
just
just takes-
basically
the ball
traded
just
AJ
takes
Brown for
straight away
AJ Brown on a
A.J.
rookie
Brown.
deal.
Wow.
That was
And
just
this-
too obvious. I mean, they just saw him at 18, sitting at 18, and just thought, okay, we're gonna trade AJ Brown and pick up a player who is similar and just get him. I mean, that was obviously their target. I mean, that was really, you could see that come.
It's smart.
Yeah, they kind of telegraphed that
Might
once they
be
made
wrong
the
for
trade.
18.
But when you make the trade, you're on the clock, and you don't care if you telegraph it, right?
Exactly. It was smart.
Yeah.
If
think-
Burke turns out, it was smart.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so just kind of an interesting point here, right? We've had now 6 wide receivers go off the board from 8 to 18. So in 10 picks, over half of them were wide receivers. That's kind of wild.
Packers fans can't be feeling great right now.
No.
Oh,
and so
hey,
many-
hey. You know,
Right,
we
Thibodeaux
love
just put up, you know,
we love to, see their frustration, but they've got to be laughing that our trade down with the Lions. I'm sure they're getting as much pleasure out of it as we are of them.
Yeah, they're probably making fun of us at least. But
I like the trade down. You could have gotten more value, but I think when there was a lot of like mock drafts you saw with the Vikings when it was either
Yep.
moved down with the Steelers or moved down with the
Absolutely.
Chiefs, and this is really just the Chiefs move. This is really just the Chiefs trade down. You know, the Chiefs had those two late first rounders. That's essentially what this is, and that's really a sweet spot, I think, for the Vikings and what their needs are. I think you're seeing a lot of guys. We just had like 10 guys go off the board, none of whom I think would have been targets for the Vikings at 12, other than the Notre Dame safety. You saw a couple guards, you saw a bunch of wide receivers. You saw a lot of other players. You're going to start, I think, to see quarterbacks start to come off the board with the Steelers at 20. Possibly not. I mean, they could continue to fall. We'll see. But that's pushing a lot of talent down. Meanwhile, you've got all the cornerbacks. Trent McDuffie still on the board. You got all the edge rushers. Karlaftis, Jermaine Johnson still on the board. On top of Abikadi, Ojabo, Boye Mafe. So, and then you got obviously all the cornerbacks we talked about. So there's going to be a lot of guys available at 32 and 34. So far, still a lot of picks away, but so far I like how the board is shaping up for those 2 picks, 32 and 34. So will be interesting to see
Yeah,
where it goes.
By the way, they just reported the Brown gets 4 years extension for $100 million, $57 million guaranteed. So, yeah.
Damn.
Howie was ready.
$25 million a year for that Treylon Burks extension. That's a lot of money for wide receivers. Obviously, the Vikings have a wide receiver coming up, so that'll be interesting. But going back to what you were saying a little bit before that, Nick, I agree with you that I think the board is falling pretty nicely for the Vikings at this point with all of these wide receivers that are coming off. Like, you're seeing the corners get pushed down, which is critical to me because I thought, like, I was fine with Kyler Gordon in the second. I didn't, like, obviously I didn't love him at 12. But I think you start to see the value there of guys who we think can be starting players are going to be available at 32 and because in the 20s, really, there aren't too many landmines of teams that are going to take corners either, I don't think. So it should be interesting.
Yeah. The biggest landmines would be Buffalo, potentially the Ravens, New England,
Yeah.
Green
Tampa,
Bay,
maybe.
because they got to figure out how to pay Jair, and then the Bengals.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty surprising to think we had 2 corners go 3-4, and now we're at pick 19, and there hasn't been one since. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Good
It's
for the
probably a
Vikings.
good thing the Vikings didn't take McDuffie at 12, considering how things fell. So,
Well, things tend
and
to
you
go
know
in
what?
groups.
We haven't talked about. We haven't talked about this possibility. I think it's entirely possible the Vikings still move up from 32 if they want to. If there's somebody who they've got, circled as a tier above. The thing about picking up that extra pick is now they've got extra ammo if they want to move up. If there's somebody that they see as like, this guy's clearly a tier above. We saw it. Kwesi did it last year with JOK. It would not surprise me if that's what they do to go get their guy. So I think that's a possibility too. But right now, I think there's a number of guys in the same tier, like Jermaine Johnson, Tyler Linderbaum, George Karlaftis, Trent McDuffie, Andrew Booth. A lot of these guys, I think, are all there. And we'll see when they start to get picked if the Vikings start considering moving up. But right now, I think they're sitting pretty, waiting for the board to fall to them.
Yeah. So while we have the time, Tyler, why don't you give us your top 5 guys on your board right now, just how you rank them, and see where we're at.
Top 5 guys, number 1 would be Jermaine Johnson. Yeah, there is, obviously you talk about the age, but what he provides you from an edge and a 5 technique standpoint. And then he can also learn how to better rush around the edge, because he wasn't really asked to do that at Florida State. And then he wasn't really able to get on the field at Georgia because, that defense was loaded. Last year it had Azeez Ojulari, Quay Walker, and then it had Adam Anderson, who was just indicted on rape charges earlier this week, but he was a starter for half the season for the Bulldogs. So that was an incredibly deep room. I'm trying to remember. I don't have my board pulled up, but Kaiir Elam's really high on that board. I love what he's able to do. Daxton Hill, Andrew Booth. And then I also have McDuffie. You're looking at a lot of defenders right at the top. All the receivers are gone. I don't value any of these tackles very highly. You talk about Trevor Penning. Some people are going to love his physicality, his great run blocking, which I really thought the Seahawks were going to take him at 9. But it's an incredibly good board right now for the Minnesota Vikings. What?
The Saints did not take a quarterback.
They did not take a quarterback. Who did they take?
Did they take Tyler Smith?
Tackle?
Nope. They picked Trevor Penning.
Yeah, there you go.
Penning. Okay.
He was very commonly mocked. I mean, after the Saints let their left tackle walk, I forget his name. That was just a huge glaring need. Ron Armstead. So you got Ramczyk on the right side, but they need the left tackle desperately, and they didn't have the money to go get one. So Trevor Penning, I think, makes a lot of sense. The Saints are probably pretty happy he fell this far because we had a little bit of a run on tackles in the beginning of the first 10 picks, and then haven't seen many go since. So, but yeah, talk about like another guy. The Vikings have zero interest in any of these tackles. So many as you want off the board between now and 32, and Vikings are still sitting pretty.
So Olave and Penning to the Saints.
Yeah.
That's a pretty nice
on the board with Malik Willis still there. I mean, yeah. They can just choose whoever quarterback they want and just sitting there at 20. It's just they can now just become the instant winner of this draft.
Think there's any chance they don't take a quarterback?
Yeah, I was told that they were going to prioritize offensive line.
Really?
That's kind of wild to me with your choice of guy on the board. Big Ben just retired. Mitchell Trubisky is not it. Like, if you're not taking a quarterback here, they're the team that's primed to do it, right? You don't do all that homework on the quarterbacks and then not do it, to me.
And they love Willis. At the Senior Bowl, they spent a lot of time. I'm talking to my Steelers guy right now. They apparently called the Saints to ask who they were taking, and the Saints didn't pick up, which is hilarious. You get a lot of that when a team really feels like they have their guy. But Willis, I guess, wouldn't be the biggest surprise in the world. I would love to see him and how they run that offense with really prioritizing downfield concepts with their receivers. But I'm still holding out hope that he falls to 32 and the Vikings just capitalize on the value. But so Jermaine Johnson doesn't necessarily fit perfectly, but Cam Hayward is in his mid-30s. They could look to maybe make him a 5-tech in that defense, even though he would be a little small. Devontae Wyatt could potentially be a 5-tech, but there's so many off the field issues, and he's 24 years old. I mocked Andrew Booth Jr. here to the Steelers when I did my final mock draft. So that's one that I could see happening. But that quarterback question, as Nick mentioned, Mitch Trubisky ain't it. But I got the feeling when they signed Trubisky, they didn't have to pigeon themselves into a quarterback, and they could wait till next year if they have to. But potentially the passing of Dwayne Haskins and losing a developmental piece who was a first-round pick at one point changed the thinking.
So, Jonas, real quick, I'm kind of curious how you have the quarterbacks ranked and what you've got for them. And like, just give us a quick rundown of who you'd take if you're the Steelers here, right? Obviously, you're in the driver's seat. And thoughts on other guys other than Malik Willis, maybe, if you're taking Malik.
I mean, obviously, in my opinion, Malik Willis is the pick, and they should pick quarterback. I mean, they have just the best opportunity. They don't have a quarterback for the future because, like you guys said, Mitch Trubisky isn't it, and you just can choose your guy. And I have Willis above Corral and Pickett. That would be the next two guys on my board, but there's actually a pretty good margin between Willis and the next guy. So, in my opinion, Willis should be the pick, and it's not the pick as Steelers just selected Kenny Pickett.
Oh,
God.
Oh, God.
All right.
There we go. Kenny Pickett.
First quarterback off the board. This keeps the Malik Willis dream alive for the Vikings. So everybody who's dreaming that dream,
And
have
I
a drink
also know.
because-
I also know one guy, one German Steelers fan who's gonna be really, really pissed right.
Yeah.
Right now.
What's really interesting is, like, I know obviously it's been almost 40 years since the 1983 draft, but one of the reasons why they didn't take Dan Marino is because he was from Pitt. He was a Pittsburgh kid. Kenny Pickett is from Jersey. That's not all that far from Pittsburgh. He played 5 years for the Panthers, and the Rooneys are still in charge of that organization. So being comfortable taking another guy from Pitt, who they now share a building with, like, to me that's a little interesting. But as I said, 40 years have passed. But man, I wouldn't have touched Pickett until the third round. There is, in my opinion, zero upside with Kenny Pickett. He's an okay processor. He had one really good year, and he had a top 5 receiving core in the nation. That's no mistake. He's got an okay arm that's capable of making all the throws, but there's nothing special about it. He's okay at evading pressure. He's an okay runner. There's just nothing exciting. There's nothing that'll help take you to another level. I have a roster ready to win a title. I need a steady hand at quarterback that's inexpensive, and that's why I draft Kenny Pickett, which is why I thought before the Russell Wilson trade, the Denver Broncos might have made sense because they had a ready-made roster to compete. And I don't understand when you have Malik Willis and Matt Corral available, who are incredibly high upside guys with bazooka arms, why you would take Kenny Pickett. I don't understand it, but the NFL is its own beast.
Yeah, for me, the Pickett hype is a little bit weird because you end up with a guy who, like, people were comparing to Joe Burrow because of his rise his senior season, right? And if you watch him play, he's like Joe Burrow off script, and then when you get him on script, he's nothing like Joe Burrow. And that's kind of the weird part with Pickett to me, is like he's billed as this NFL-ready guy, and then he doesn't play within structure well, and he doesn't progress reads consistently at all. And that's something that's probably important for a quarterback you're trying to plug into a ready-made team. So I don't really get it. The Steelers, I think, are a relatively competitive team. Obviously, they made the playoffs last year with the corpse of Big Ben. But, I don't love it. Nick, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it as much as you guys do. Obviously, I think he was, by some, the best quarterback in the draft, just the lowest upside. And upside is kind of the name of the game in recent years, but we've also seen some of these like, quote unquote low upside guy like Mac Jones, classic example last year. He was like, why would you want Mac Jones? He's so low upside. All he does is like get the ball to where it's supposed to go fairly accurately most of the time, but he doesn't have a good arm, doesn't have good athleticism or anything beyond that. And I think Kenny Pickett is probably the same way. He's because we're living in an era of Josh Allen's and Patrick Mahomes and everybody, Lamar Jackson's and everybody else. That's kind of the prototype we now want. And Kenny Pickett doesn't fit that. So I think he gets nitpicked. At the same time, I would not be happy if I were a Steelers fan right now. But just because you want to swing, you don't want to hit singles when you're trying to win Super Bowls. You want to, if I can mix my sports metaphors, you want to swing for the fences. So I get why Pittsburgh does it. I don't love it. If I were a Steelers fan, I don't love it, but I also completely understand it. And I also think like the extent to which we talk about ceilings and floors for quarterbacks is a little funny because just executing the position and doing it well is so much of the battle too. It's easy to underrate that unsexy part of it too. So wouldn't love it for Steelers, but that's kind of when Big Ben retired and they didn't go get anybody other than Mitch. This is kind of what they were stuck having to do. So it is what it is. It does help, I'm more quarterbacks to go before now and 32 does help the Vikings. Take as many as you want. Hopefully this is the start of the run on quarterbacks. I don't think we'll see it, but would love to see more quarterbacks go. So
the Patriots take a first round quarterback back-to-back years for us, please.
Probably not. Buccaneers maybe as a dark horse with Tom Brady.
They took Kyle Trask last year, and all indications are they really like Kyle Trask. I think that it's going to be a Brady win now pick. But I'll be back. I'm going to take a quick break, guys, because I need to go celebrate Kenny Pickett not going to the Minnesota Vikings.
There we go.
That's funny.
Excellent win.
Get up, Tyler.
Why don't we flip to talking about the Minnesota Vikings a little bit here? Going back to the pick, we've kind of talked about corners that we like. We've talked a little bit about safeties that we like. Jonas, if you're there, I guess for me, I'd be interested in edge rusher. I don't know if you agree. And if you're interested in edge rusher, who would you kind of think about for the Vikings at that point?
I mean, it's interesting because I'm very high on George Kalafdis, but question is how he fits into the system. But if you want him, obviously I wouldn't be mad about this. I have him ranked 9th on my board, so I'm really, really high on him. And I know I'm way higher than the consensus. He's sometimes a bit too cute. He should use his power rush a bit more because he has a great power rush, and at times there's really no reason for him to try the finesse way, which he can use, but I think he would be like one of the better power rushers instantly because of how well he does it. Jermaine Johnson also, obviously, the hometown pick, and I think I wouldn't have liked it at 13, but I would definitely like it at 32. That would be really good value. And maybe if you don't think win now, you maybe even swing at David Ojabo at one of those two picks, who has really high upside. And depending on what the doctors said about his injury, he may miss some time, maybe even his whole rookie season. I don't know. I don't have insight in this, but there are a lot of ways they can go, and maybe with a slight down trade again. I don't know. Also, a guy like Nick Bonito, Abby Katie, they also could be possibilities at that point. So if you want to go edge rusher with one of those picks, you really have a lot to pick from. And we also mentioned cornerback. There are like 4 cornerbacks who have been mocked in the first round right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the cornerbacks are good. Are still my number one option right at this spot. Going to edge rushers, I would agree with you. Karlaftis and Jermaine Johnson would be my 2 top guys that are still on the board.
Surprised they're still here. Jermaine Johnson particularly. I mean, there was a lot of heat about him going as high as number 4 to the Jets. And I didn't think he would last to 12. And here he is. We're at pick 21, and he's still on the board. So that's a bit of a shocker. There's always some guy who's like, why is this guy falling so far? And it seems like Jermaine Johnson, now that Kyle Hamilton got picked, Jermaine Johnson's now like the surprise faller. So we'll see. I don't think he falls all the way to 32, but yeah, there's a lot of good edge rushers. We still have not seen we haven't seen a single edge rusher taken since
Thibodeaux.
Treylon went, no.
Thibodeaux went 5.
The last one?
Yeah.
So we've gone, since the 5th pick, there hasn't been a single edge rusher or cornerback taken. That's a shocker. And obviously great for the Vikings.
Ooh.
So,
Patriots just traded it to the Chiefs. Chiefs are on the clock.
So we can pretty much guess
This may be
it's
Jermaine
probably
Johnson.
My guess would be wide receiver
maybe.
like Sky Moore, but yeah.
are there any? Sky Moore? I guess it's Rich, but
Yeah.
man, those wide receivers are flying. That would be the 9th wide receiver in the first round, which is nuts.
I would you just get in front of the pack with this if you are targeting an edge rusher.
No, get in front of the Packers, get a wide receiver.
Especially
I'm
with the Packers.
not convinced.
You think it's a wide receiver, but
So going back to Jermaine Johnson a little bit, one of the things that I think is a little bit interesting is he is 23, which is older. We've mentioned that a little bit. He is over a year older than anybody who's been taken so far. I have data up on ages of everybody except for Kenny Pickett, who obviously is a quarterback, so he doesn't really count in terms of the age discussion. And then the 2 offensive linemen, Penning and Zion Johnson, are both like turning 23 soon. So I do think the age is kind of the limiting factor for Jermaine Johnson. I also didn't really see him in the top tier of edge rushers personally. Like, it would have been the top 3 guys and then a second tier for me, which included Jermaine Johnson. So that could be hurting him a little bit as well if that's how teams saw it.
yeah, pretty crazy. I mean, he's still a really good player, though. I mean, you look at the arm length, you look at the explosion, he's got good size, good frame. Could play anywhere from 9 tech to 5 tech, I think, on the roster, and would be a good day one starter for a team. So I kind of, going as high as 4 seemed really rich to me. 10 made sense to me. Going to like the Seahawks or going to the Jets, like at their 2nd pick, that would have made sense. I'm shocked he's still here. I get that he's not the upside pick, but he's still going to be a good starting edge defender in the NFL. Those are, worth their weight in gold. So surprised he went this far. Would love it if he kept falling, but I guess we'll see. Really interesting. I'm really curious to see if we're going to continue to see wide receivers, because there's only so many that can go in the first round. But Chiefs, you have to think, traded up for a receiver now because they're jumping the Packers specifically. And
I
Packers,
think this is McDuffie.
Oh,
the corner.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the steam I'm seeing. I haven't seen anything official, but I think it's McDuffie.
They do need corner help, so.
yeah, no, that'd
I
be
like
really
this kid
interesting.
McDuffie.
Would have liked to see him go to the Vikings, but
3rd and 4th to go from 29 to 21. Good for the Patriots to get their 3rd back with the Devontae Parker trade. And the Chiefs had 12 picks. They probably weren't going to keep all of them, so use them.
Yeah, so the Chiefs, I believe, had 2 firsts, 2 seconds, 2 thirds, and 2 fourths. So they still have a 3rd and a 4th. So they're not really losing too much on this move up. It'll be really interesting to see which player goes here. If it's McDuffie, we can talk about him a little bit, because Nick and I both watched him, pretty significantly, or as much Washington all 22 as we could get, right?
Mm-hmm.
As difficult as that is. But I thought that this range is where I would have wanted to take McDuffie for the Vikings, right? Trade back into this range and take him here. The arm length was a big concern to me, but outside of that, I really liked, his athleticism, right? He's obviously a very twitchy player. His attitude's great. And I think technically, like, he was a very sound player. It was just the size concern gave me a little bit of upside concerns for picking him at 12. That's probably somebody you want to expect to grow into a Pro Bowl All-Pro corner, and I didn't quite see that. Now at 21, the draft's getting a little bit thinner. I think he's going to be a quality starter for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, inside-outside versatility, very fluid, very good mover, very explosive, high motor player, makes a lot of crazy plays going across the entire field. So, good player. Vikings fans might remind him a little bit of Antoine Winfield, given the short size, but the feistiness. He's a sticky corner, very good zone corner as well, just because of how explosive and athletic he is. I do think, but not just the short arms. He's got, 29-inch arms, which is below a lot of cutoffs, and we're not just talking like short arms, we're talking about very, very short arms. So that gives you some concern about whether he'll be able. Yeah, so it gives you some concern. Can he press? Can he win at the catch point? Is he going to get bodied by the bigger receivers in the league, tight ends? Is he a slot only? I think he can probably survive on the outside, but I don't think it's an ideal fit. I think that probably pushes him down. I also think I watched a few more games of him. I saw him get beat deep a few times. I'm not sure he has the long speed that you want ideally on the outside, especially when you're going to see so many vertical routes outside. So I liked him. I would have liked him to the Vikings, but I liked Andrew Booth more than him. I kind of saw Kaiir Elam in the same tier as him. Kyler Gordon, the other guy at Washington, I don't think is that far off either. So good pick for the Chiefs. Makes a lot of sense, but also I'm not too sad that he doesn't end up as a Viking.
Hey, we want to welcome Ed, the man Broadmark, to the broadcast. And while we do that, we also want to thank Jonas for his long participation and having the line as to who's picking before just about everybody else. He and Tanisha.
You guys want to know
You
guys want to know the Packers pick?
They take a receiver?
Yes. They went linebacker, Quay Walker. That's what I just saw.
Okay. All right.
This is Quay Walker is a height, weight, speed guy, right? The Steam, his over-under went from 40.5 to 20.5 in like 2 days. So obviously people got information that he was going in the first round. But this is great for the Vikings. Like I don't think linebackers value pick at all. I don't think he was the best linebacker on the board. So
and they took him to pair with Devondre Campbell. They're basically the same player. Like,
oh my gosh, Packers!
It doesn't make a lot of sense.
So guys, are we getting Malik Willis?
I'm manifesting it. My wife loves manifesting, and I'm manifesting it.
Well, okay, but like, look at who's on the clock. You got Baltimore; they don't need a QB. Dallas, they don't need a QB. Buffalo, they don't need a QB. Tennessee, they don't need a QB. Tampa Bay, Green Bay,
maybe.
Pittsburgh, New England, and then Kansas City.
I don't see why Tennessee would take a quarterback. They're stuck with Tannehill without that contract is structured. Now they've restructured him for at least 2 more years, unless they want to do a $40, $50 million dead cap hit.
Like barring someone else trading up and getting ahead of us, like this is dream scenario for the Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
if they do that, though, we don't know. I would love to see it. I want to see it.
So Quay Walker was number 51 on the consensus board. It is by far the biggest reach of the entire night. And that's on top of an inside linebacker going to like a Joe Woods Fangio scheme where inside linebackers like kind of don't matter. So I'm very surprised that the Packers gave Devondre Campbell $50 million over 5 years. Now they're using one of their first rounders on a linebacker. And he wasn't even the best linebacker on the board. I mean, you had Nakobe Dean on the board. You had, who's the other guy?
He wasn't even the best linebacker from his own team.
Devin Lloyd is still on the board. So that's...
the Ravens just traded to the Bills.
The Ravens traded with Buffalo, yep.
Who did?
The Ravens just traded down with Buffalo. This may be a Christian Watson spot or a corner.
I could see
corner or wide receiver, I think.
With how much Brandon Beane loves the trenches, watch him just try and capitalize on Jermaine Johnson.
Hey, to back up Nick's statement on Quay Walker, CBS has him as their 88th best player. Thor Nystrom had him as their 68th. So that's a huge reach.
You know, Goody marches by the beat of his own drum. He is not afraid to get bad draft grades.
So the Ravens got 130, which is a end of the fourth, like a fourth compensatory pick, probably.
That's Buffalo's actual 4th round pick.
There you go.
Oh,
So it's not quite a comp.
It's just that late in that round. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So here's a quote on Quay Walker from Bruce Feldman, because he knows like everybody in college football and gets some great stuff. On Quay Walker, he's got great length and had one of the most impressive pro days I've ever seen. He did a bunch of rare shit there. 24/7, his ability to drop his weight and change direction and get through the bags was like, holy F. Like, I wonder if they're taking him as an actual linebacker or if they want to make him a stand-up edge or if they want to do like a safety hybrid role with him. I feel like the Packers are taking him with an idea of not having him as a traditional Mike and doing some fun stuff.
Yeah, so quick on Quay Walker athletically, 6'0", for height, so 6'3.5", 32, and what is that? 5/8 inch arms. So not really, edge rusher length there, but he did have that 6'8'9" 3-cone and a 4.52 40. So obviously very good athlete. His RAS is 9.63, so that's like 96th percentile or whatever, 96.3 percentile. Obviously a great athlete, great size for the linebacker position, not a great size for the edge rusher position. 232 was the weight. So even if they want to have him do some kind of hybrid stuff, right, he's going to be I would say he projects to be mostly an off-ball player.
You all know Annie Agar, right? Well, no, this isn't Annie. Yeah. It's somebody else. Got a picture of Annie Agar. Packers fans.
No, that was her. Yeah, that was her, Dave.
Well, I know it was her. I saw a comment on the post. Nick, are you... Well, no, wait a minute. That's Jonas. Hold on.
If this is Elam to the Bills, that's a massive, massive win for Buffalo. To be able to get him opposite Tre'Davious White.
I could see that.
Yeah, no. So if it's Kaiir Elam, that's where corners are starting to come off. I think get somebody across from Tre'Davious White from the Bills. I liked Kaiir Elam a lot. Obviously, press man corner, really, really grabby. So you're going to need to rein that back in the NFL. But had a good game against. Had a really good game against Jameson Williams from Alabama.
Yes.
Right? He's got movement skills. He's got he's got what you want to profile as a press man corner. A little bit shorter arms, still sub 31-inch arms, which for me 31 would be the threshold. I know people talk about 30-inch with Trent McDuffie, right? His is like 29.5 or something like that. But a little bit shorter arms than you'd like from a elite cornerback prospect, but I think that he's got the profiling for a press man corner. And Smith 22 Vikes, you are 100% correct that we are begging for Booth. Nick and I think, are both in agreement there, where if we were to move up for Andrew Booth Jr. here, I think it would be an absolute win.
Mm-hmm. Wait, Elam's arms, were they 30 and 7/8, or is it 30 and 5/8?
30 and 7/8 for Kaiir Elam. Stingley was 30 and 5/8.
I mean, my hands are about that big. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. Hand size matters too. For wide receivers, I guess. Treylon Burks, those 4X gloves and 9 or whatever inch hands. So,
jeepers. We're gonna get Willis.
All right.
It's gonna happen, man. It's happening. We're taking Willis.
Speaking into existence.
Manifest Malik Willis.
It's happening, man.
If it happens, I'm going to lose my absolute mind. With his skill set and how the NFL really prioritizes those kind of players at the position, even with all his flaws, I'm floored he's still here.
What are you
Well,
going
I
to do
think
then,
someone was
Tyler?
saying, like this is the first time there hasn't been more than one quarterback taken in the first 15.
Yeah, it's
That's
wild.
insane.
Tyler, what are you going to do then when Kirk Cousins makes Malik Willis into Jordan Love?
That means we are Super Bowl contenders. I guess I really can't be that upset.
There we go. That was a joke. In case that wasn't clear.
Oh, I know you're
I don't
busting my
believe-
balls, but Malik Willis. Malik Willis was the dream from the get-go, but I never thought it could actually become reality. And with 32 and 34, it really could be reality. Especially if Andrew Booth goes before pick 32. One corner to watch that could sneak into the first round. UTSA's Tariq Woolen.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Really?
the rarest. He is not ready to start or play a lot of meaningful snaps in the NFL right now. But the athletic profile and the flash plays that he's made are on just a different kind of level. That if you could get his technical skills up to average to above average, he can be a great cornerback in the league. Can you ever get him there? I don't know. But just the size and athletic profile being as rare as it is, I wouldn't be shocked if somebody wanted to take him at like 30. I think he's more of a back end of the second round guy because there's so many questions about that athletic profile. But
So
you
Cowboys
don't
are on the
find
clock here.
6'4" corners that can run 4.29.
All right. So here's a question. What is better, the Vikings getting Willis or the Packers taking Willis at 28? Just for hilarity.
There were rumors swirling earlier today that the Falcons were in on Jordan Love, and they've got 4
Interesting.
day 2 picks.
Oh, a trade?
Yeah, I don't want the Packers to take Willis because I want the Packers to not. I want there to be zero chance the Packers are any good post Rodgers, which is already trending that way. But the adding Malik Willis just adds like the fear factor in the back of my mind that he'll be. This is why I didn't want the Lions to take him because like Lions take Aiden Hutchinson, like good player, it's gonna be good. But the Lions are still the Lions. They're still like a 5-win team, or whatever. The Lions take Malik Willis.
Dave,
and
you
there's
said
a
there's a
slight
trade?
No,
No.
I did not.
Lions take Malik Willis. There's a slight chance eventually that's their quarterback, and now they're a transformed team. So I don't want the Packers taking Malik Willis. Get him either to the Vikings or to somebody far away from the Vikings. So,
I mean, Lions gonna line until they prove otherwise, and they've shown nothing that says they're gonna do otherwise. So.
Yeah, they're lucky if they get good once in a decade.
And even then, they're still gonna line, right?
Oh yeah, they
They
won't get past.
won that one season and lost out to end up in a wild card spot. Like,
Mhm.
I'm really intrigued to see what the Cowboys do here because the best offensive linemen, the 2 best guards are off the board in Zion Johnson and Kenyon Green. The best tackles on the board are Bernard Raymond, who's 25, and Tyler Smith, who's incredibly raw. You have Tyler Linderbaum, who I've heard that they don't value at all in the first round. Corner, there was just a big run. Edge rusher, this could be a Jermaine Johnson spot because they lost Randy Gregory. I know they love Dorrance Armstrong, but Jermaine Johnson's an immediate upgrade. They need safety, but the Cowboys never prioritize safety. So this is... I wonder if this is a trade-up spot.
Possibly.
They do love first-round linebackers.
Mm-hmm.
what do you think
Jermaine Johnson
Linderbaum's
makes
gonna
a lot
go,
of sense.
Tyler?
I think his ceiling is 31 to the Bengals, but I don't think they need to do that. I do think that if Linderbaum had 33 inch arms, he'd be a top 15 pick because he's so clean, so technically sound. He's got like I got off the thinking that the Vikings should take him because I don't think he's a requisite upgrade enough over Bradbury to warrant taking him in round 1, considering like positional value and all that. But the impact he could have on an offensive line it could be reminiscent of Quentin Nelson because he's so technically sound and he can do so much for you. But that arm length is a really, really big deterrent for a lot of teams. And Matt really broke it down well with corners. It's the same thing with offensive linemen. If you have like 31.5-inch arms and you've got guys who are going to truck you and just forklift you off the ground, you can't get into their chest. How are you supposed to be able to stop that? And that's, in my opinion, that's one of the big reasons why he's still here.
I think on that you got to rely on the technique, right? If the technique is elite level,
pick is in.
I can make up for some of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the pick is Tyler Smith from the Cowboys.
I like that. High upside, probably best as a guard right away as he continues to learn. But he's got a nastiness to him, and he's very, very athletic. He's like 6'6", 330. I really like that pick.
And that fits with what the Cowboys have done. Like in the last decade plus, they draft O-line early and often in the draft. They continue to dump resources into it, and some years they have just an embarrassment of riches on the O-line.
And he's young.
It's their style.
He's coming out as a sophomore. He's got to be somewhat young.
Mm-hmm.
He's 20 right now.
Yeah. So.
Yep. All right. So I got to step out here real quick, guys. I'll be back in a minute.
Okay.
Go for it.
So is Tyler Smith a guard for the Cowboys?
I think he's a guard right away, and then he can play tackle long term. They love Terrence Steele. I don't really know why, but they didn't value Lyle Collins towards the end, and that's why they ended up just outright releasing him. The Cowboys front office, Will McClay is one of the most brilliant front office minds in football, and then they have Stephen Jones, who's the exact opposite. But I like that he can play guard.
A billionaire's kid. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
he has a long-term flexibility to be a star tackle.
Well, and it matters too what they actually put on the card, right? So if they saw him as a guard and wanted him to basically indicate that you're a guard, they would have put guard. They put tackle. Like you said, I think they see him as a long-term solution at tackle. He might not be there right away, but...
Well, and there's also the money difference on that second contract.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Well, also the fifth-year option, too. I don't know how much different it is between tackle and guard, but I know there's some nuance in there with that fifth-year option on those positions.
I think it's all going to depend on how much he plays and plays where. Because Jimmy Graham fought that a few years back when the Saints franchised him. He wanted a wide receiver franchise tag, but they're like, no, you're a tight end. And then his argument was, well, I play so much out wide and I do wide receiver things. And I think they settled somewhere in the middle to avoid like an actual all-out war.
Wasn't there another one recently that also had that designation? I want to say it was like Kittle or something, but I don't think that's right. Or was it a running back that wanted the difference between the two as well?
Between running back and wide receiver? Or something like that?
He didn't make it.
He never got tagged, so I thought it was I can't remember, but
no, I think it was Shaq Barrett, linebacker and edge.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Smith22 Vikes in the chat just asked Nick and I to start talking about some names to watch for the Vikings. Nick, looks like 7 picks away. Baltimore's on the clock right now. Who are the guys that you would prefer the Vikings to take at 32?
I would run in Jermaine Johnson if he somehow survives all the way to 30. Obviously, Andrew Booth is my guy. He was somebody I would have been happy taking at 12. I know the consensus board didn't value him, but me watching him, other than the missed tackles, I mean, he just gives you everything. I think a lot of people sleep on Andrew Booth. One, he was a little injured, so he wasn't able to run at the combine, but I think he's got a lot of athleticism, good size, good explosion, good quickness, not a ton of necessarily long speed, but good enough. I think he's got. I think he'll be a day one starter, and I think he's got the upside to be a Pro Bowler down the line if he gets the right coaching. So Andrew Booth, I think, is probably your number one target if you hope lasts that long. If not, like I said, Jermaine Johnson makes a lot of sense. I think George Karlaftis makes a lot of sense. If both guys who I would have definitely not thought would have lasted this long. Obviously, you got Malik Willis. If you feel like taking a swing on a quarterback, maybe having 32 and 34 makes you feel a little bit more comfortable because you can get your potential QB of the future in addition to a day one impact player. Devontae Wyatt makes a lot of sense as somebody who was commonly mocked to the Vikings, would be able to help out the Vikings on the interior defensive line. There's a lot of, Daxton Hill, there's a lot of safeties, and then you've got the rest of the edge class after Jermaine Johnson and Karlaftis. You've got Boye Mafe, you've got Ebiketie, you've got Ojabo. So a lot, you've got kind of the power rushers in Jermaine Johnson, George Karlaftis, and then you've got like more 3-4 outside linebackers later on. All kind of first-round talents that I'm surprised we haven't seen more edge rushers taken off the board. So those make sense. Andrew Booth, I think, just given that there haven't been a lot of cornerbacks, I think the dream scenario for me right now is Booth at 32 and then or maybe Jermaine Johnson at 32 and Booth at 34. Something like that would be incredible value at two positions of need. But, I think there's a lot of good players on the board, and I think they're going to have some good options in 7 picks regardless of how things go. What do you think, Tyler?
I like everything you said there. Booth, I think, would be kind of the dream scenario, getting a top 5 cornerback in the first round while getting all that requisite value behind it. I still think I can't get off Malik Willis. And obviously I love Malik Willis, but you have a quarterback with that kind of potential and you can take him at 32. I just don't see how you can pass it up. Christian Watson would be an intriguing option from that perspective, but I think safety is a great value too, and especially a guy like Daxton Hill who can play in the slot. He played almost exclusively from the slot at Michigan this past year. Like, there's a myriad of options that you can go. Man, the way the board's falling, I have no idea what they're going to do.
Well, and here's my question, pertaining around the Vikes at 32. I'm assuming right now, based on how this board is dropping, we're probably going to stay at 32. What do we think Jacksonville's going to do at 33? Because if there's someone that we really want and we think Jacksonville's also going to take, you take him at 32 and you roll the dice that someone else is not going to take the second guy you want at 34. Right? So in my head, like, the math turns to now, what is Jacksonville going to do?
It's a great question, and yes.
Yeah. So I do think that's an interesting question there, Ed. We have, quite a bit of flexibility, I guess, at 32, 34. So I would say the corner room's more thin for me right now than than safety or another position edge. So I'd be more willing to go with corner with that first pick and then come around and take an edge, right? So at 32, obviously you're thinking Jacksonville took Trayvon Walker number 1 overall. They're probably not going to double down on edge, although we've seen that in past years, I believe, where teams are kind of willing to do that. And that leaves you with whoever you wanted at 32 at edge is probably still there at 34 as well.
Yeah, a lot of good options that could go right now. So I'm kind of curious to see what the Ravens are going to do here. I feel like they could, if there's a place where Andrew Booth goes, I feel like it would be here to the Ravens. I also feel like the Ravens could secure their trenches too. So curious to see what they do there.
What did the Ravens do with their first pick? Yeah, they took Kyle Hamilton, right? So do you think they doubled down on DB?
Safeties. They've already got a great defensive backfield.
I feel like this is going to be Jermaine Johnson for the Ravens. They capitalize on falling players all the time. They just capitalized on Kyle Hamilton.
Linderbaum.
It's Linderbaum?
On the TV.
Yep. Ravens?
Yep.
Ravens are taking Linderbaum?
So it says picks in Tyler Linderbaum.
That doesn't really fit at all. Fit.
That's
a weird
fit, but I love the player.
That's one of those things that you look at in a mock pick and you think, like, this mocker doesn't know what he's talking about. But okay. I mean, obviously, great player.
Wow.
One of the best players on the consensus board left. But just I think of him as a pure wide zone guy. And the Ravens are all about gap, power, push guys, drive blocks. So don't get the fit necessarily. Although, to be honest, a lot of what the Ravens do, it's like a lot of counter and pulling, and they like to move guys too. So they get guys in space. But I don't know. I guess Linderbaum probably is more versatile than he's not like a pure wide zone guy. You just worry about does he have the oomph to like move people, and that's what the Ravens love to have. So, that surprises me. I know that they did need help in the trenches, and given the fact that the other guards were all, Kenyon Green and Zion Johnson were already off the board, this is probably the best interior offensive lineman left. It's just the fit is a little surprising.
Yeah,
and I agree.
Now
The
the
fit's
Jets are
weird.
on the clock.
I agree with Thomas.
Oh, the
I'm glad
Jets
he's
traded
gone.
up.
Well, so this
This
is
must
not a
be-
Willis, right? They can't be.
This has to be because they were the ones who wanted Jermaine Johnson. So
Nick.
Yeah, I agree with Nick. They were really coveting Jermaine Johnson. This has to be Jermaine Johnson.
Yeah,
Who was it? 26. To forget.
Titans.
Okay.
And the Jets were what, 35?
35 and 38. I'm wondering what the package will be.
From 26. Let's just assume it was 35.
Nick, you had
Sorry?
booked through 9:30. Do you want to stay here and close it out?
I'm fine. I'm not going anywhere. So if other people want to join, I've said my piece, but
He's not leaving.
otherwise, it's not like I've got plans. Kids are asleep, so I'm just vibing.
Okay. Now
He's
Ryan
not leaving.
says Ryan's going to be on the show tomorrow all night. So.
It's Jermaine Johnson.
Yeah, that makes too much
Connor
sense.
Rogers just said it, and he's as plugged in as anybody with the Jets. Of course, they're showing Linderbaum pinning Tristan Wirfs in high school wrestling. I love it.
There you go. But yeah, so Jermaine Johnson to the Jets, obviously great value compared to where we thought he was going to go with pick 26. Eden Prairie native, if any of you guys listening, I'm not in the Minnesota area, and I know Nick's not, but Tyler and Ed are.
Oops.
So, Minnesota area guy, a little bit older. I think that's what drove the drop. The Jets obviously really coveted him in this draft, but they were able to play the board really effectively. Right, all the reports were the Jets wanted him, but they were able to play the board effectively and get him down at 26. So I really like the move for them.
And he fits that 5 technique that Seattle cover 3 defense really covets. You think of Justin Smith, Michael Bennett, those guys who really will set the edge and play that true outside rusher. Like, This is just great for the Jets. Like, outside of the Ravens, they're having, I think, the best draft so far. Getting 3 top 15 players in the first round is tremendous.
The trade, by the way, was the Jets got 26, 101, and they gave away 35, 69, and 163. So pretty happy.
Okay, that's not bad.
Yeah, it's right in line with what you'd expect for value. So
Yeah, no, that's a fair trade for both sides. Obviously, doubt the Titans had anybody that was screaming to them on their board at that point, because they run a little bit of a style of defense that I don't know how good of a fit Jermaine Johnson is, right, as opposed to a hand in the dirt pass rusher. So, win for the Jets. I think this is a really good draft for the Jets, getting a blue chip corner, getting a really talented wide receiver in Garrett Wilson, and then coming back and getting that edge rusher. They're really filling out their needs well, and they still have, a early second round pick to keep going. Okay, so now who's on the clock? 27 would be the
Bucks.
it was the Bills
Bucks.
originally, right?
Bucks.
So, oh no, it's the Bucks. Yeah.
The rumors have been swirling that Lewis Cine is going to be the pick. Would not be surprising.
That would be fun.
They
like to
need
point
help in the
case that
secondary.
It's not New York teams; they're New Jersey teams because they play in New Jersey. So the only New York team is Buffalo Bills.
They used to play in New York at least.
Yeah,
Nick.
but they don't anymore, which doesn't make any damn sense.
Nick, as somebody who lives in New York, how do you feel about this?
Well, I do live in New Jersey. I just work in New York. So.
Jacksonville.
I
Jets and Giants.
I have no qualms. Jersey is basically the sixth borough, so it's true. They play at they play in New Jersey, but they are the New York Giants, New York Football Giants, and the New York Jets. So, but I don't care. I don't get mad if you call them the New Jersey Giants. So they do play.
I just think it's hilarious they play in New Jersey. It's like you guys couldn't figure out a spot in New York to play.
New York City real estate turns out to be pretty darn expensive, so hard to find a place for even like Yankee Stadium is a huge hike away. So
Denver Sox fan asks how many couches were killed to make that jacket.
12.
That's good.
It's a unique pattern.
I don't know if you guys heard me. The Jags just traded with the Bucks, so I'm not sure who they'd be coming up for.
So that means
they might be coming up for Booth.
Well, and that also means the Bucks will be behind us at 33.
Yeah, so the Jags sent 33, 106, and 180 to go up to pick 27.
That sounds like a steal.
I think this is for a corner.
Did they get anything else back besides 27?
Nope, just pick 27. So 3 picks for 1 pick.
Oh. Yeah, the Bucks made out like bandits on that pick.
I don't understand why Trent Baalke has a GM job, personally.
It does kind of feel like the Vikings. I said I like the trade down for the Vikings, but all the other trades you're seeing right now, it feels like the Vikings probably got the worst value out of any of them. Like a lot of teams feels like they're paying a premium to move up. The Lions did not really pay a huge premium to move up. It wasn't like a ripoff or anything, but some of these other trades, like the Eagles trading like 4 picks to move up just for a couple spots, and some of the other ones. So I don't know. Curious to see what the Jags do here, though. They've got a lot of needs. So as any 3-win team or whatever would. So.
So back-to-back number 1 picks. So
because of who's behind them, I feel like it's a corner. Like this feels like we're gonna jump New England.
Or are they jumping Green Bay having a wide receiver?
Maybe.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Let's see. Who else has kind of fallen? Let's kind of take a look at the board here.
Devin Lloyd, Karlaftis, Andrew Booth, Nakobe Dean, Dax Hill, Devontae Wyatt. Those are the top consensus players still left.
So it's pretty much what we expected outside of Malik Willis to be here.
Yeah.
There's nobody really that's necessarily quote unquote fallen. Your mileage may vary on how you view Booth and guys like Wyatt, because some people had him in like the teens, but this is about right where we thought we should be.
Yeah, and I will say, going back to the trade value a little bit, which is being talked about right now, the trade the Vikings made is a little bit different from the other trades, right? Because you're seeing late 3rd and 4th round picks really be the value that's going to the team that's moving back at this point, whereas the Vikings got 2 premium picks in 32 and 34. Obviously, we swapped back again from 46 to 66, so that's the part of the trade that I don't think is great. But ultimately, I do think that we're in a pretty good situation just in terms of the value we got from the trade, we can still take 2 blue chip players. Like I remember doing mock drafts, trading back with the Chiefs. I was loving the haul that I was getting, and I think we're in the situation to do that as well.
All right, man. I have a slight disagreement for blue chip. We can find good quality players. A blue chip to me is somebody that comes in, starts right away, and is better than average. I think now we're at a point where we can come in, they can start, but we're going to be lucky if they get average in that rookie year, because there is such a leap, for
that
growth.
just sounds like semantics where you're both saying the same thing. It's just the verbiage.
No, it's I probably misspoke longer.
I probably misspoke a little bit there, Dave. I would agree with what you're saying there. I'm not going to say we're going to get an above average, Pro Bowl level player right away. Although that has happened in the past in this range, right, where you get instant starters. But we are going to get two guys who I think can start on this football team in year 1.
Devin Lloyd is the pick.
It's important to realize, right? The draft itself is just a crapshoot, right? You had us take Matt Khalil, which was consensus blue chip tackle, and he's out of the league 4 or 5 years later, right? And
it worked out his rookie year. It's just every year after that.
Rookie year, but that's it, right? And then you have guys like I think it was Harrison Smith was picked 29 or something like that, and he's been a mainstay, elite level player for the better part of a decade plus. So who knows what you're going to get? And I just like having this ammo at a stacked draft where this is where you want it at 32 and 34.
So Devin Lloyd's the pick, obviously, linebacker, really good size on him as well, probably similar physical dimensions to Quay Walker. And yeah, that's accurate. He's 6'0", 237 with 33-inch arms. So that's, an inch shorter than Quay Walker, but pretty much same arm length, same weight. Obviously, an older player as well. He is almost 24, I believe. He's like 23 and a half as of today. So at that point, but just a really talented player out of Utah. Obviously, we talked about off-ball linebacker not being a great value in the first round, and that's kind of why I would have shied away from somebody like Devin Lloyd. But, I think it's good for the Vikings that the Jags didn't try to trade up in front of us to get a corner or trade up in front of the Patriots to get a corner either.
Right.
The interesting thing about Devin Lloyd is when they unleashed him as just a pass rusher, he thrived. His pass rush grade for PFF was in the high 80s. He's a versatile chess piece that you could really utilize. Bless you, however you want. I don't think you need to pigeonhole him just as an inside corner an inside linebacker. You can do a little bit of everything with him, and I think that's a big draw. I thought the NFL would value that just a little bit more than at pick 27, but the really nice pick, especially after losing Myles Jack for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, he was the best player left on the consensus board. Obviously, the age and then the positional value probably gets him to fall a couple spots, same as we saw some of the other linebackers and safeties fall as well. Running backs, obviously, no running backs off the board yet either, so positional value does seem to be a little bit the name of the game tonight, but it's still, I think it makes sense for Jacksonville, and also is good because I don't think he would have been on the Vikings board either. So the more we're getting closer to the Vikings here, so the fewer teams take a Karlaftis and Andrew Booth, a Dax Hill, the happier we'll be. So hopefully the Vikings can walk away with one of those guys.
Yeah. So we're at pick 28 right now. That means we have 28, 29, 30, 31. 4 picks left in between here in the Vikings. I think Andrew Booth is somebody I'm really interested in. Daxton Hill's somebody I'm really interested in. Lewis Scenes, somebody I'm really interested in at that 32nd pick. Jalen Petrie, even, honestly, at that pick is somebody I'd be really interested in. So there are a ton of good options, and I think we're going to leave there with a player I like a lot. Those are 4 guys in the secondary off the top of my head who, are obviously all 4 aren't going to go in the interim. So I think we're going to get a really good addition to the secondary with that 32nd pick is my guess.
Tyler, do you think Dax Hill's a pure safety, or do you think he could play corner too? Because I've seen him listed at both.
I think he's best as a safety,
But I'll tell you this, I wouldn't be mad if he had to play outside in a pinch. He's got a really versatile skill set. In the mock draft that I did for the Vikings Wire, kind of doing what I would do, I traded down and took Dax Hill at 23. I love the versatility. Pairing him with Harrison Smith, you have that kind of riverboat gambler guy who loves to come up to the line of scrimmage and then just bail backwards. Daxton Hill can do a lot of those same things. He ran a sub 4.40. Like, he's got speed, he's got range, he's got like quickness, he can thump. I think if you put him in a role similar to what Tyrann Mathieu has done in the NFL, I think he could play at his absolute best. But I think he can play corner. And that's an incredible draw because he was a slot guy in that Michigan defense. I would be a really big fan if the Vikings ended up with Daxton Hill. But with Malik Willis on the board, I'm just going to keep banging the drum for Malik.
That's my next question: is if Malik is there and one of these corners or DBs is there, what do you take?
Packers is in.
And I'm seeing they're taking Devontae Wyatt.
Taking Willis, period.
I'm seeing Wyatt.
So
Wyatt.
So no receivers for the Packers.
Nope. They hate Aaron Rodgers.
See, I kept hearing steam that they wouldn't take receiver in the first round. Like, that's just...
Which means they're going to take
here
a
we
receiver,
are.
right?
no, so they took Devontae Wyatt.
Yeah, Georgia.
Georgia defensive tackle, who is, I mean, he's a really good player. Some people had him rated over Jordan Davis as an interior defensive lineman. He offers you a lot more pass rush than Jordan Davis does. Nick talked a little bit earlier about adding some of that versatility maybe with Jermaine Johnson at that 22nd pick. Devontae Wyatt, I think, is more of an inside player, but he can play at 1 technique, he can play at 3 technique, he can play at 5 technique, and he's going to be a pain for a poor pass-blocking interior offensive line at this point to kind of deal with. Add next to Kenny Clark there, who's obviously a really good interior pass rusher. While I'm glad that the Packers haven't reloaded weapons at all, right? And Alan Lazard's probably penciled in as their wide receiver 1 right now. Well, I'm glad that they haven't quite done that. It's, their front seven's kind of a nightmare for us to go against, right? We consistently get destroyed on our offensive line by that front seven, so it's just more of a nightmare right now.
How though, if you are the Packers, do you trade away Devontae Adams and do not find a way to come away with a premier wide receiver in this draft? I don't understand that.
Ed, I kind of do. I don't think anybody expected all 4 of the top wide receivers to be gone by, pick 12? Like, I think we expected the run to come in the teens and those guys to come off at 15, 16, which is a lot easier spitting distance than going up to the top 10. Like, the second round quality of wide receivers, some people believe isn't that far off from the top. And taking 2 guys in round 2, let's say they end up with Alec Pierce and Sky Moore, as a hypothetical. That's a really good haul, and you really revamp that receiver room. You have Alan Lazard, who can be a really nice piece, that big body guy that they absolutely love. You have our Amari Rogers, who I really like as a slot guy. And then you can still add good pieces to that receiver room without having to give up premium capital to trade up all the way to go get one. They still have cap issues, so trading up to go get one might not have been an option for their cap situation. And I think that's something that might not have been discussed as much as possible because the Vikings basically lost $3 million in cap space with this trade. But I mentioned that earlier in the show. And there's just so many different elements to it. Plus the Packers, they never prioritize receiver anyways. They always prioritize stacking the trenches, that front 7. And they did it with both Quay Walker and Devontae Wyatt, which they've already drafted 2 Georgia Bulldogs. Maybe they have a third one in mind, like I mentioned earlier with Pickens.
I push back a little bit on the cap being kind of an issue
What,
there.
Dave?
Pat's picks in.
I don't think that, like, especially maybe moving up that far, I could see, but like for the Vikings gaining $3 million cap, I don't think that's a huge deal.
Do we know who it is, Dave?
Yes, we do.
Who is it?
Cole Strange.
Whoa! What?
Cole
What?
Strange. Wow.
What?
Okay.
In the first round?
We'd heard a lot of steam about him going in the second round, but the first round is impressive. He's so if you guys don't know that name, which you probably have heard of him, given the Vikings' propensity to like small interior offensive linemen, he's Garrett Bradbury, but he went to Chattanooga instead of NC State. No, he's a really athletic small interior offensive lineman. He's going to struggle against power early on. I guess the hope with him is that he's able to develop strength, but he's a great zone blocker.
Are you guys saying that this is a strange pick?
He is
Yes.
on the consensus board. He is the number 76th player. So this is a third rounder. If you thought Quay Walker was a reach, this is a whole nother round bad. So
I really thought
but
that
at the same time, man, Patriots
if
know
you're
how to
going to see
develop
another
these
center
dudes
sneak into round one, I thought it'd be Cam Jurgens from Nebraska, who's probably a top 50 pick. But this is
the other thing.
This is Bill Belichick.
I would have thought he would go to a wide zone team just because of the lack of size and the extreme athleticism helps him out a little bit more when you're doing those reach blocks. But New England's still more of a power and just gap scheme duo, move bodies forward, drive them off the ball type scheme. So that's another one of those offensive linemen, just like Linderbaum. I don't get the fit, but
Guys, I have to interject.
okay.
We are a Kansas City pick and a Bengals pick away from Malik Willis being a Viking.
Man, yeah, I mean a Cole
And
Strange. That's
the
certainly
Bengals
not somebody
do
who
not
like
trade back. So once that Kansas City pick is in, that locks basically Malik Willis being available at 32. I don't think the Bengals have traded back in 25 years.
So just real quick on the maybe potentially pro Cole Strange idea here. Cole Strange had an RAS of 9.95, which is obviously very close to the 10.
Same.
Short shuttle of 4.5, 3-cone 7.44, which is really, really good for an offensive lineman. His top comparisons as an offensive lineman are Evan Mathis, Ali Marpet, and Joe Tooney. Those are the top 3 comparisons on the list. So that's a really good set of comparisons for him from an athletic standpoint. Now, the other thing with Cole Strange is, I believe, if I have this right, he's also 23, going to be 24 years old when the season starts. So a little bit of the Garrett Bradbury issue of a really old player. Obviously, he was at Chattanooga, which is not a high-level program, right? So maybe you're expecting him to add more weight and more power at the NFL level. And the Patriots have been really good at drafting and developing offensive linemen, so I'm not going to necessarily say that it's a bad pick for them, but they do tend to go outside of the consensus on their picks, and people give Bill Belichick a lot of credit, but it doesn't always work out for him either. So,
right, but I mean, at this point, I don't think you can really say, Bill, you made a bad pick, because he's been developing these types of picks for years, and
decades.
If he thinks he can turn him into the next All-Pro, you know what? Go for it.
And he's got that athletic ability, and I loved his attitude.
You can't teach athletic ability.
So let's see. Do we think the Chiefs give us our 9th wide receiver, 8th wide receiver?
No, I've heard all day they love Boye Mafe.
Well, they could take him
That would
here.
make sense.
Yeah, and Boye Mafe, obviously, gopher, but fantastic athlete as well. Kind of the back half of the first round is where you take those shots on athletes developing.
Yeah, I mean, I would have loved Mafe on the Vikings too. We'll see if that's the pick. I think Karlaftis would make a lot of sense too for the Chiefs. They could use a little bit more pass rush juice because right now Frank Clark is kind of trying to do it all for them. So both of those would be good picks. And then Bengals, could be really interesting. I think Bengals might still try and fortify their offensive line, but also Andrew Booth is a pretty obvious fit there for Cincy too. So would kind of suck if Karlaftis and Booth or Mafe both got sniped right before the Vikings picked. But I also think like one of the reasons I want the Vikings to take them so much is because they would be great values, and they wouldn't be great values if other teams didn't pass on them first. So we'll see what happens. But even if not, there's still a lot of good players. All the safeties are still on the board. Seen Dax Hill, all those guys, and then there's all that whole tranche of edge rushers, not just Karlaftis and Ojabo and Mafe, but also Abikadi. And all those guys. So should be a lot of good guys coming up here.
Edge rushers, it is Karlaftis.
It is Karlaftis.
So, Mateo, you don't have to worry about the Vikings picking Karlaftis. I really like that because they've started using Chris Jones as more of a hybrid interior-exterior guy, rushing the passer. And I think Karlaftis with his frame, his best comparison is Ryan Kerrigan. And if you get a Ryan Kerrigan career out of Karlaftis, you're feeling pretty good about this pick. Like just a steady pass rusher who's got some explosiveness to him, got the requisite size and strength. Like this is a really good value pick for the Kansas City Chiefs, and he can make an impact right away, which is what they need.
Willis.
That
you're setting
that
yourself
means
up
Malik
for
Willis
disappointment.
is guaranteed to be there because there's one, the Bengals don't trade. They don't trade down at all. Two,
Well, they don't trade until they do
they're not
because the
gonna
Giants didn't trade until they did.
Yeah, well, Dave Gettleman had like a 5 or 6 year sample size. The Bengals have like a 25-year sample size, and their owner is basically the GM. Like this is like Mike Brown's vanity project. So I've got people telling me in a fantasy football group chat that Kellen Mond is the future, and it makes me sad.
Yeah, okay. If he was the future, he would have played some games last year. We wouldn't have started Mannion over Booth when Kirk got COVID.
Oh yeah, but we have evil bad man, who's no
Bad
longer.
man.
For what it's worth, I don't think Booth will be going to the Bengals. Just kind of talking to people, it doesn't sound like he meets some of their thresholds. I don't know what those thresholds are, but worth noting. I wonder if
What do
maybe
we think of Logan Hall here?
Look, I would love Logan Hall at 32 if Willis wasn't on the board. Like Logan Hall, he's such an alien size-wise, but he knows how to use power. He's got length, and he knows how to win leverage. And that gives him such a great ability to just maximize what his size profile is. Like I heard he was playing at like 265 at Houston, and he was that dominant physically on the interior. You can put him outside. You can do everything with Logan Hall. I thought he would be a target for the Packers. Like I think Logan Hall would be a great ad, but Boye Mafe is who I mocked to them with my final mock draft. Mafe reminds me, like, physically, a lot of Trey Hendrickson. He's a little less lanky, but like the arm length is the same. Some of like their agility scores are comparable. And Hendrickson slid to the 7th round. He really shouldn't have. He should have been like an early day 3 pick, but sometimes guys just end up falling.
Hey, before we get on to our pick, while we're waiting on the Bengals, I want to remind everybody, tomorrow night at Lake Monster Brewery in downtown St. Paul, if you need directions, we'll help provide them. Climbing the Pockets live draft coverage will be at the brewery. Come meet everybody. We're giving away a free jersey of your choice. We're giving away UNRL sweat hoodies, which are absolutely premier. I would die for one. They're great. And free beer and gift certificates at Lake Monster itself. You're going to have all the guys there, a live situation. You can come up, talk to them, get on mic, get on camera as we look into day 2, where we already know we have an extra pick. So it's going to be a fun day. come join us.
Gonna be exciting with
All right.
that 34 pick, baby. Oh,
Mhm.
Vikings are on the
Bengals
clock.
pick is in.
Daxton Hill.
No, Malik,
Dax Hill.
come on.
Wow.
Pairing Daxton Hill with
No,
Jesse
Daxton
Bates.
Hill's who the Bengals got.
Oh, got it. Okay.
No, sorry. Yeah, because we already talked about the Chiefs pick. Karlaftis.
Or not the Chiefs, the Bengals. There, yeah.
Bengals got Hill.
If I misspoke, I apologize. But Daxton Hill, that's a great pick for the Bengals. He adds some extra depth at slot corner. He can play outside if needed. Plus, him roaming around with Jesse Bates is just fun.
Yeah. So
Andrew Booth Jr. still being on the board is a big win for the Vikings. He's both the best player available on the consensus board and also my draft crush. So would love to see that hit him here. Obviously, Malik Willis, if you want to swing for the fences, there's a lot of good pass rushers here too. So see what the Vikings
Nick,
do.
you beat me to it. Best player available on Arif's consensus board is Andrew Booth Jr. Also have Malik Willis is number 3, so it's not like he's that far off or considered that far of a reach as a quarterback based on the consensus. So really kind of exciting to see what they do here. Andrew Booth Jr., like Nick talked about him earlier, but for myself as well, like I think he's got really, really good press technique. Like he doesn't use his hands maybe as much as you want, but I think the foundation is there with the footwork and the patience in terms of flipping his hips that you show. And that's kind of the number one thing to me. Like the hands can come later, and the hands thing is kind of what you're asked to do in press technique as well. This is something that was talked about with Derek Stingley, where he's using more of a mirror technique than that jam technique at the line of scrimmage. So I really like him. I like the versatility. He played in quarters. He played cover 2. He played a wide variety of systems there at Clemson, and he played pretty well in all of them. Like I didn't love him in zone. I think he could play zones a little bit tighter some of the time, but I think he's a really, really good player, and I'd be excited if the Vikings took him here. Obviously, the core muscle surgery is an injury question for him, so maybe that's part of the reason he's falling as well.
I heard it was just a sports hernia, not like a traditional core muscle injury. So hopefully that means it's a lot less serious.
Well, that's what they said about Darisaw.
Yeah.
I still feel like we were lied to about Darisaw.
Booth is a good player.
Well-
I thought he was more impressive to me than McDuffie or Elam or any of these other cornerbacks who've gone so far, other than Stingley and Sauce. Just so explosive, great ball skills, great zone corner because of his ability to sort of make plays on the ball and explode on the ball. He's good mirror technique, good patience out of press. He gets beat sometimes at the tops of routes, and he doesn't have like great long speed necessarily. He's got good, not great long speed. So he's not like the complete package as a pass rusher, but he does have good size, especially compared to some of the other short arm guys in this draft, not just McDuffie, but Stingley too. So I think he's got, if he were able to test at the combine, I think people would be a lot higher on him because his athleticism really pops. I think he's somebody who you could play as a rookie, but also he's got upside too. So I would really like him to be the pick. I think he makes the most sense as fitting a need, but also the value on the chart. Of course, Kwesi being the first-year GM, we have no idea where he could go with this, and with the injury question marks, it's possible. People said Booth could fall out of the first round because of the injury question marks and not testing tough stuff too. So, I mean, we've got Malik Willis on the board. We've got Lewis Seen, who's was a first-round safety talent, would also help the secondary. We've got all the pass rushers still: Ojabo, Ebiketie, Mafe.
And what happened
Logan
if
Hall, so-
Kwesi trades back on this one? Because it's obviously a prime trade spot.
Yeah, I mean, if you get good value. I mean, they have another pick coming up right away.
Here's my question with this, right? You know Tampa Bay is right now at 33. You know Tom Brady is not going to play forever. If you have on your board Malik Willis and you want to improve your secondary, and you assume Tampa Bay is going to stay at 33, who are they more likely to take if you do not take the other position? They're more likely to take a quarterback.
No.
So I think you take a quarterback at 32, right? And then you wait for whoever falls to be at 34.
I think if the Vikings want to take a quarterback and add him to the roster, obviously they take him at 32. I think the question is more whether or not the Vikings are willing to take a quarterback at this spot, which if I had to bet, I would bet that they're not.
No.
But
wrong.
go ahead,
Never
Dave.
mind. Never mind.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Ed, they love Kyle Trask. I don't think they're going to take a quarterback. I think the most likely scenario is they take safety. Lewis Ceen's been linked to them all week. I think that's probably going to end up being the pick, especially with Daxton Hill only being the second one off the board. I don't think the Vikings will take Lewis Ceen here. I think it's probably one of two guys. It's either going to be Andrew Booth Jr. or it's going to be Malik Willis. I can't think of anybody else that's going to add the requisite value and fit some of those thresholds, and then most importantly, kind of fit that age threshold that we project Kwesi to really believe in. This is a weird draft because there's a lot of 23, 24-year-old guys in it just because of that COVID year and how everything was so uncertain. Like, it's an anomaly year, and we have a GM, as alluded to earlier, who's never made a pick before. We have no clue.
Willis.
I'll say one more time. If you think Malik Willis can be a franchise quarterback and he's available and you have an uncertain future at it, you take him and you figure it out.
Yeah. So Andrew Booth is what half of us are rooting for, and I think the other half are rooting for Malik Willis. Dave, who do you want here?
Oh, I said it before the show. I haven't put it out. I'd love to see Malik Willis be drafted and just pure chaos. I would love to see the attitude it brings to Kirk Cousins, and I think it would be a good thing because you got that extra fifth year, and you could keep, which helps with the value while you're paying Kirk, and Kirk can then leave after next year, and he can step right in. I think it'd be a beautiful thing.
I just look at that. You pair a young quarterback like that's that dynamic. You pair him with Justin Jefferson.
I just saw the pick, guys. The pick is Lewis Ceen from Georgia, safety from Georgia.
Really?
So we talked about, the Bucs taking Lewis Ceen. They traded back, and the Vikings appear to take the guy that they were targeting the entire time. So that's a really interesting pick to me. I went out, I think I might have tweeted this the other day, where I was more comfortable taking Lewis Ceen at 12 than I was taking Trent McDuffie at 12. I love Lewis Ceen. I think he's a fantastic football player. He's going to go great into the Vikings quarters, cover 6, all of that system. He's a great half-field safety. He's really fantastic coming downhill in the run game. That's something you really need from the safeties in this run game, is a player to trigger fast and come downhill fast. He also has the range on the back end and the coverage instincts to do it. One of the analysts I really like is now with The Athletic. I'm blanking on Deontay Lee with The Athletic. Talking about Lewis Ceen, he basically, his point was Nakobe Dean and Lewis Ceen on that defense were the two players when Georgia needed to make a play. They were the guys that they asked to make the play. And given the amount of talent that team had, I think that's a really impressive, a really impressive accolade for Lewis Ceen on that team. So I'm on board with this pick. Like Nick and I talked up Andrew Booth Jr., there's questions there with the medicals and the lack of athletic testing. So we'll see what we do at 34. But if we can come back at 34 and get Andrew Booth Jr. or get an edge, I'm really, really happy with this pick personally. I know it's not Malik Willis, guys, but
they may come back. I would doubt it.
That's a question of whether or not the team is willing to take a quarterback, and I think they answered us no.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is the
Kwesi
profile.
34. I don't know.
He's young. He's ultra athletic. Ran a sub 4.40. Super explosive. Jumped over an 11-foot broad jump. Good size, 6'2". So I mean, he's a very good size, weight, speed, upside player. He was also a very pivotal player for that Georgia defense. Was one of their key players there, one of their key contributors. So this is a big pick to develop that secondary. He allows you to do a lot of things, I think. It's interesting that they would pass on Kyle Hamilton and then they would take a safety later on in the first, but clearly they must not have seen as big of a difference between these two guys as some of the other folks did. I did see get a lot of first-round hype. He's not a reach or anything. He's probably right around where was he on the consensus board?
33rd on the consensus board.
He's 33. So yeah, right on target there. Good player. Has a chance to start, I think, right away. Depends on how you feel about Cam Bynum, but I feel like he's probably an upgrade over Cam Bynum. He's also really young, so potential to be your a safety you build around long term too. So that's an exciting pick. Would not what I would have guessed. I would have guessed they would go Booth, but I guess Booth probably they could pick up next time around on tomorrow. So we'll see what they do there.
Just your point on Cam Bynum. I mean, Harrison Smith is not getting any younger, so this is a both and with Cam Bynum in my eyes. Cam Bynum is one of your guys going forward, and this pick is the replacement for Harrison Smith going forward as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
In a vacuum, I think this is a really nice pick. Seen, like, especially with, like Matt was alluding to it earlier, with how important safeties are and what Ed Donatello is going to want to do. Like, it's really nice to be able to have that, and you can move Cam Bynum to more of a slot role, or you can put Scene in that role, and then you have a lot of diversity on the back end. Really, really good player. I would have thought he would go in the early 20s. I thought the Packers might have been in on him. Obviously, the Bucks were rumored to be in on him all day. Like, as Nick said, it fits the profile. I like it in a vacuum, but man, Malik Willis was staring you in the face, and you don't take him. I'm floored he's going to be available at 33. With everything that we've seen, with how the NFL is trending with quarterbacks, you let one of the most traits-based quarterbacks that has an absolute bazooka arm, immense running ability, and you let him fall out of the first round. That I'm floored. Like, I don't get it. You take Kenny Pickett in round 1, but Malik Willis is going to be available at 33.
Somebody's going to.
It sensically doesn't make sense to me.
He's going to be available at 34. Don't worry, it's fine.
So if you're going to take him at 34, you should have taken him at 32 for the 5th-year option. Like, they're not going to take him at 34. Right. They're not.
I agree. I don't think the Vikings are taking him at 34. And it's just a decision by the organization to wait on quarterback. So they're going to see what they have in Kirk Cousins. I know, Kevin O'Connell, I believe that Kevin O'Connell believes in Kirk Cousins, right? Like, I don't think that messaging coming from him is fake. So they're not going to invest in a quarterback at this point. Kirk Cousins is under contract for 2 more years. Now, if we have this season and it doesn't work out, I would expect the Vikings to be shopping for quarterbacks next offseason, right? If Kirk Cousins isn't able to take that next step. I just want to bring it back to Scene a little bit. Scene was a really, really amazing athletic tester. 992 RAS. That's 99th percentile again. 4.37 40-yard dash. 10 split of 1.45, which is ridiculous. Like, that's really, really fast out the blocks. And then he also had a broad jump of over 11 feet at 6'2", 199, so about 200 pounds. So he is a big physical safety, and he's got great athleticism. Now, he didn't do agility drills, so we can probably guess what that means in terms of he's lacking there. Like, he's not a player that I would project as a slot corner necessarily, but like I said at the beginning, I love the player. I was really comfortable with him as a pick, and I probably would have taken Andrew Booth over him at 32, but he's my second choice, excluding the quarterback situation, which I don't think is something that we really have say over, right? That's a willingness of the team to take that quarterback.
Yeah, it's 100% a willingness of the team, and I'm very disappointed that they didn't take it, but I'll get over it, and now it's time to move on. 34 becomes a really interesting spot because there's a couple good edge rushers. There's Andrew Booth Jr. still on the board. Do they take 2 secondary guys with their first 2 picks and then wait until 66 to go in another direction? Or do they try and move up with 77 and 66 to go back into the second round and get another guy? I want to think outside of Booth, Logan Hall's an option. Boyan Mafe with his athleticism is an option, even though there's the age. Christian Watson is tempting. I don't think there's any junior receivers out there that might be appealing, but like the Vikings have the second pick tomorrow, and that's going to be really, really fun.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really exciting.
I'm
Go
kind
ahead,
of curious that they wouldn't take like the premium position for the 5th-year option, just because a 5th-year option with the safety is worth less than a 5th-year option with a corner or an edge rusher. So, but then again, maybe they didn't think. Well, actually, I guess who's next? The Bucks, right? So, and the Bucks just took
Yeah.
the safety. So,
Right.
Scene probably would have been available at 30. So that part is puzzling to me. But yeah, high upside player. The athleticism is there. I think he was a good player for Georgia and a pivotal player for Georgia, and he might be a better pro than he was a college player too. So intriguing pick, and certainly helps the secondary, which was this team's number one, I think, weakness. So makes sense.
0.47 wins above average. Eric just posted it on Twitter.
There we go. I honestly don't have great context for that in terms of how that rates among safeties or other positions. So, but at the end of the day, I do think safety was a need for the Vikings. Like, I don't want to count the chickens before they hatch with Cam Bynum, right? I think that I like him as a player, but I'm not willing to say he's a starting safety yet. I think Lewis Seen is a starting safety day one in the NFL. Also, as Ed mentioned, if we do like Cam Bynum and think he develops into a starting safety, we do need a long-term answer next to replace Harrison Smith. So I think the combination of the two really adds. Also, as Nick mentioned, some slot corner snaps are a potential for, Tyler might have mentioned this, sorry. Slot corner snaps for Cam Bynum. He played a couple last year. Maybe that's kind of an interesting wrinkle. Or a 3 safety / dime package. I know that's something the Packers ran a ton under Mike Pettin. So it could be interesting.
Their jungle has it right.
That does it for round 1.
3 of the first 45 picks tomorrow at Lake Monster Brewing.
Yes. That was one of the funnest first rounds I've ever been a part of in any
All the
draft.
crazy trades, the receivers,
The trades.
Say it's crazy. I don't know about fun.
Just like the player trades a day of. I don't think we've seen that many of those go on during the draft.
Oh, we got Kwesi going to talk on K-Fan.
Okay.
There we go. Need to dig up the
By the way,
Kindred Skulls clip of
no,
Matt talking about how he would take Lewis Seen at 12.
Yeah, I actually should cut that tonight, huh?
Uh-huh. You should.
Yeah.
Go dig that up.
You should.
Either way, no matter who we pick today, obviously we got Lewis Seen, but no matter who we pick today, the Vikings got better today. And we'll get better tomorrow.
Yeah. I know for what it's worth, Jordan Reed loves Lewis Seen. So I know he and Matt are in lockstep there.
Well, a lot of guys I trust love Lewis Seen, and that's part of the reason I love him. I'm not going to lie.
It makes it a lot easier to love a guy when there are people that you really respect that love him too.
Yeah, we're starting to get bot attacks.
Ah, yes, the good old bots.
There you go. All right, guys. I'm going to hop off here, but really loved hanging out with you guys tonight. It was a lot of fun. And we got a player I like a lot, so I'm not disappointed at all.
Matt, you're scheduled back on Saturday.
Yes, I am. I'm pretty sure I've got like a 4-hour time slot, which we'll see if I...
Yes, you do. 1 o'clock to close.
Oh, man, it's going to be a marathon. Probably me and Tyler hanging out for the whole 7th.
Yeah, you and Tyler. I'll be here. You get Nick at 1 o'clock on Saturday as well. And then Ed and Darren Campbell for the 3 o'clock hour on Saturday.
I believe I also
Perfect.
have
I
the
remember
11
doing it with
o'clock as
Darren
well.
last year. That was a lot of fun.
Yes, you do have the 11 o'clock with Tanishka on Saturday. Tomorrow, we have from the brewery, Tyler Fornes, Ryan Ortega, Matt Anderson, who's been doing a ton of work behind the scenes, and we appreciate Miles Gorham to start things off, Jonathan Hake will join us later in the evening, and then we'll wrap it all up once again. Tomorrow will be busy, fun, full of great beer from Lake Munster, and we hope to see you there. Any last words, guys? I already said we got better.
We
got
better tomorrow, man.
Got a safety to play downhill. Second pick tomorrow. We're basically on the clock.
You got that right.
I still can't believe the Vikings had 2 shots in Malik Willis and said no. I'm in pain.
Well,
I will be ready to go tomorrow.
Start pounding your keyboard now.
We're about to have a 3rd shot tomorrow.
Yep, I'm gonna go write my piece, which is gonna be heavily Malik Willis based, because it's about guys to watch for to go off the board on day 2.
Uh-huh. Well, what do we say?
Skull.
Skull.
Skull Vikings!
Skull.
Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell, and rate us on your favorite aggregator. And a special shout out goes to our partners, the Daily Norseman, where the best Vikings content can be found, and to Lake Monster Brewing, home of the best beer in Minnesota. Skol, everybody.